high. He has loved you from the beginning of time. Heaven shall be here on earth. Wisdom shall give understanding to live in. Live in. Let us embrace remembrance.
Do this and
And not allow sin to be found within. We are warriors against darkness. On the mountain we stand to be a beacon. Beacon. Our lead we will follow. Obedience is ingrained in our hearts. The abomination shall be cast to duty out. The righteous shall reign eternally, eternally. Oh, the apple of his eye. He has loved you from the beginning of time. Heaven shall be here on earth. Wisdom shall give understanding to live in. Live in. Let us embrace remembrance and not allow sin to be found within. We are warriors against darkness. On the mountain we stand to be a beacon. Beacon. Our lead we will follow. Obedience is ingrained in our hearts. The abomination shall be cast to duty out. The righteous shall reign eternally, eternally. Shall reign eternally, eternally. You are the apple of his eye. He has loved you from the beginning of time. Heaven shall be here on earth. Wisdom shall give us understanding to live in, live in. Apple of his eye. Hallelujah.
Shalom. May peace and thanksgiving offerings be multiplied amongst all the saints of the Kahan Yarden. Bringing forth today's live Shabbat class, joined by my readers on my right, Kahan Gabaria, and on my left, AP candidate Cameron. We're continuing in this series about the 10 horns, the 10 toes that Nebuchadnezzar saw that Daniel interpreted. But before we get into the class, and before we get into the announcement, we got to talk about something very important, very particular today. Today, as we speak, going live, is the 4th of July. And it is a day that those in the West, those in America, are celebrating dearly. Celebrating wholeheartedly. And a lot of us, even amongst our own constituents, Israelites, tend to think, well, it's not necessarily a day, a holy day. It's not a day associated with any deity. And so I'm just gonna watch the fireworks, I'm not doing anything. I'm not celebrating, I'm just watching fireworks, I got the day off. I'm just gonna go to a barbecue, eat. Well, I'm not eating pork, I'm just gonna eat some beef ribs or some steak or whatever, a hamburger. But I'll tell you that this day is a high abomination, and we're gonna talk about why. No Hebrew, whether in mindset or by blood, should be celebrating this day. This day is a day to commemorate the establishment of Babylon the Great. And why would we, as people who were once enslaved, celebrate that day? But before we get into that, we're going to read from this article, heritagefoundation.org, about the 4th of July. Go ahead and read that from the top when you got it, AP Candidate Cam.
4th of July, the Heritage Foundation. Is the 4th of July a holiday? It is for most Americans a day off work. For some, it may even be an occasion for a trip to the beach or the mountains. It is a holiday or feast day in the traditional sense of the word. Is it a holy day?
So the question is being posed by the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative news site. Is the 4th of July a holy day? Not a holiday, which is a contraction of holy and day, which now has a watered down term. Is it a holy day on the level of Easter or Christmas? Is what he's asking. Let's read on.
In his essay on leisure, the 20th century German philosopher Joseph Pieper claimed,
interesting name, Joseph Pieper. Anyway, let's read on. You know.
Claimed that as a simple statement of fact, there is no such thing as a holiday without gods.
Without gods. He's saying, arguing the point that a holiday must be attributed to some sort of deity. You cannot have a day of celebration without a reverence to a deity, is what this philosopher is arguing. Let's read on.
We live in a cynical age, however, in which notion of sacrifice, not to mention patriotic sacrifice, is a suspect. This can make it difficult to see anything sacred about the 4th of July. Independence Day marks the anniversary, after all, not of divine revelation, but of political revolution. It memorializes not a sacred text, but a political text. It was ordained not by a church, but by the state. What could possibly be holy about red, white, and blue fireworks?
And a lot of people have this mindset. Oh, it's not a holy day. I'm not engaging in paganism, or I'm not engaging in something against what the Most High has said. I'm simply just, watching the fireworks. I'm just watching, these celebrations that they do. I just, it's something to do. I got the day off. I just want to make sure. I just want something to do. But what was argued even before this German philosopher was argued by John Adams himself. Read on.
Yet in a letter to his wife, just after the American colonies resolved to adopt the Declaration of Independence, John Adams wrote with hope that the day would become the great anniversary festival. Adams expected that it would be commemorated as the Day of Deliverance.
A day of deliverance. John Adams is trying to make 4th of July like Passover.
Yeah.
On Passover, amongst many things, the children of Israel also remember them being delivered from their enemies, delivered from the hands of the Egyptians. John Adams said, this is like our Passover. This is us being delivered by the oppression of the British. You can't compare the two. But he said this is a day of deliverance. To do what? What should be done on this day, according to John Adams?
First, by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty.
First, before you get into fireworks and popping your guns off, he said the first thing you should do is by engaging in solemn acts and devotions to God Almighty. This is what John Adams, the founding father of this day, is telling you to do on this day. This is the code of conduct of what to do on 4th of July. Crazy, coming up here, I saw churches with wreaths on them in red, white, and blue. You at church, what you got to do with America? The Messiah, Christ, your God, told you to be in the world, but not of the world. But yet you now have wreaths of red, white, and blue. Let's celebrate independence of America. John Adams told you this day should be devotion to God Almighty. And then what?
Then followed by shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of the continent to the other.
Finish that up.
Why did Adams, who became our second president, deem this modern day of independence as an occasion for religious solemnity?
Yeah, solemnity. Why did he say to make this a day to be religious? Here's why. Let's go to Revelation 12 and 9. Now, obviously, they're telling you to celebrate God Almighty. And some might say, well, what's so wrong about that? What's so bad about that? Well, hearken to this series that we're undergoing about the 10 horns. Today is not about America, but I'll be willing they're going to have the time to come. Let's read Revelation 12, verse 9, Kahan Gabardi.
And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our Abba, and the power of Yahweh. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before Abba Yahweh day and night.
All right, now go to Revelation 13. And so now we see that red dragon, Hasatan. He is the accuser of the brethren. This is a specific pattern that he follows. It's a specific rule that he follows to go and accuse you, as we've covered in several classes, and then he can reign over you. We're going to cover that briefly in this class as well, Abba willing, so stay tuned. But let's get to the crux of this point right here, Revelation 13:1.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Upon his head, or upon his horns, 10 crowns, and upon his heads of the name, upon his head the name of blasphemy.
And so we've covered this already, that the angel coming from, or the beast coming from the sea is the people, and it is these nations. The 10 heads, or the 7 heads, are the 7 captivities, 7 empires that oppressed the chosen lineage, starting all the way back from Mesopotamia, persecuting Abraham, then to Egypt, then to Assyria, then the Mesopotamia, then the Greeks, then the Romans. And then these 10 horns is the subject of this series, how these are states that were once under Roman rule and Roman subjection and learned from the Romans and did the same thing in the stead of the Romans to reign over the earth, build their empire, and then oppress the children of Israel. Let's read on. Verse 2.
And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power.
So the dragon gave the beast his power. Now, once again, we talk about the beast is these nations that have come and gone, and now the 10 horns are these nations that have modeled themselves after Rome. And America, as we said, is not the subject of today, but Abba willing, they are to come. So with that being the case, if America is not part of this beast, once again, I don't want to get too deep into it, but if it's related to this, and the dragon gave its power to the beast, when John Adams said worship God Almighty on 4th of July, who was he talking about worshiping?
The beast.
The beast, the dragon. He's not talking about worshiping God, the Most High, Abba Yahweh, who created all things. He might seem like that. He might have the aura of that. But just because you claim to be a Christian, just because you say, Lord, Lord, doesn't mean you're entering into the kingdom of heaven. And so on this day, you're commemorating the independence, the beginning of the seat of Babylon coming to this country. Why would a righteous person celebrate that? Even taking Frederick Douglass' argument on the fundamental level. You were a slave on July 4th, 1776. Where was your independence? They were independent from their quote-unquote oppressor while oppressing you. And now we're going back. Oh, I'm at the barbecue 4th of July. I'm in red, white, and blue.
Hey, they was free to go to work.
Yeah. You was free to roam around this plantation, then go back to your slave quarters and pick my cotton, and that was it.
That's it.
You had freedom to do nothing else. And yet we, as a people, are going and celebrating it. We should be, people saw the young brother being shot by the Asian store owner, and they're ready to boycott Asian businesses. And I'm with that. I can understand that. Anybody getting their nails done, they going to Ling Ling getting their nails done, their feet done. You might want to stop. But we can boycott that, but we can't boycott this country that enslaved us for centuries. We can't do that. We can't do that when they did worse than shoot our young men in the store. And so when we do this, we're actually commemorating the beast on this 4th of July. And so I advise anybody listening to share this with your brothers and sisters, share this with your friends, anybody you know dressed up in red and white and blue. got the American flag on their shorts, share this with them. And let them know that you are commemorating the independence of the beast. You are commemorating Hasatan giving his power over now to America and saying, now go do my bidding. Let's read on. Let's jump down to verse 4, Kahan Gabaria, and finish that up.
And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast.
They worship the dragon. So John Adams is telling you, worship God Almighty on 4th of July because he's telling you, worship the beast. This is what all the nations did. They began to worship the dragon who gave power to the beast. And so it's a foolish thing. Only a fool at this present day will think that God, the God of the Bible, Abba Yahweh, is giving power and reign to America, or that he's blessing America. Only a fool and somebody who doesn't know history, doesn't know scriptures, will think that. Just because they put one nation indivisible under God does not mean they're talking about the God of the Bible. Does not mean they're talking about Abba Yahweh. And so we have this narrative that, oh, they were Christians. The founding fathers were not Christians like that.
No.
They were not over there devout Catholics. No, they were imperialist. And here's another thing too. We talked about this several times, but if you were such a God-fearing nation, why would you deify your founding fathers? When is it ever written in the scriptures, David, the great man, was a god? It wasn't. When is it written, Moses, the man who was not a man, he was a god? But if you go to Washington, D.C., you go to Rotunda, they got a painting, a fresco of George Washington ascending up to the heavens, becoming a god. They have deified their founding fathers. You can go to the Lincoln Memorial and see Abraham Lincoln, a statue of him sitting on the throne with 5 pillars on the right, 5 on the left, like Abba Yahweh, in his temple. And they literally call it a temple. And this is supposed to be a God-fearing nation. This is who you're bowing down to. This is what you're doing when you're celebrating the 4th of July. Finish that up.
And Abba did say, learn not the way of the heathen.
Absolutely.
4th of July is the way of the heathen. And they worship the dragon, Revelations, the 13th chapter and the 4th verse. And they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?
All right, so the dragon gave power to the beast. This is the power that he gave, the same power that we read in the 12th chapter, to accuse the brethren. Let's read that in the 5th verse.
And there was given unto him a mouth to speak great things and blasphemies.
To speak great things and blaspheme against the holy people of Abba Yahweh. To accuse them day and night. This is the power that's been given even to America and these 10 horns that we're talking about. And so when we celebrate the 4th of July, us as black people specifically, those who've been carried here as slaves, you are commemorating and celebrating your destruction. You're commemorating the beast giving power over to America by Hasatan the dragon, giving them power to accuse you day and night. Who gets happy about getting accused? Yeah. Let's celebrate the day I went to jail. Yeah, let's celebrate. That don't make no sense, but yet we're so willingly and foolishly go out and pop fireworks and celebrate. And they gave you Juneteenth as a little red herring, like, yeah, you know, we're inclusive. That don't mean nothing. That don't mean nothing at all. Where is the true reparations? Where is the freedom? Where is the education of who we really are and our heritage that was stripped from us? Where is giving us a nation back? I don't want no dang 4th of Juneteenth.
Yeah.
I want Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, Feast of Weeks. I want to keep my heritage that was given to me by my forefathers. But they're giving you this false narrative, and that's crazy that is what we've been restricted to. Our heritage restricted to us being freed from slavery. Nothing else. And yet, like I said, we're willingly celebrating this abominable day. And we have some anecdotes of this being a day that accusations reap havoc amongst the people. Now, anecdotes are not proof of something, but they definitely support your proof. And so, like I said, I know priests probably remember, brothers probably remember. There's been several instances on the 4th of July where havoc was wreaked. I mean, amongst the congregation, and not because somebody was openly and going out and celebrating it. Well, not all the time. Sometimes you might have those rogue, kind of loose people who went out and kind of had the same mindset. You know, it's not a pagan day. I'm just going to go out and celebrate. And it was to their own destruction. We're not going to get into details, of course, because those are personal histories.
Right. That's right.
But we personally have seen the destruction that comes about by saints, those calling themselves saints, those calling themselves Israelites, going out and engaging in this day. It led to nothing but utter destruction. So I implore anybody watching, listening, rebuke this day, forsake this day. Do not celebrate, do not get caught up in the midst of it, because it is nothing but destruction for our people. Now, let's get back to the topic. We had to go through that because specifically today, as we're shooting this live, is July 4th. But let's get back to the premise of this class. Last week, we covered the first horn in chronological order, being the Ottoman Empire. Now we're going into, Abba willing, 2 more horns. But before we get into that, the announcements, as we always do. Forget 4th of July, all right? We have a biblical Hebrew calendar where we show not just holy days, but also our days that we should be memorializing. We just passed last week, or earlier this week, 4th month, 9th day. This was a day that we are to memorialize, to remember our own history, something written out in our books, the Bible, about how the Babylonians destroyed our temple and laid siege on the 4th month, 9th day to Jerusalem. We have another Memorial Day coming up, 5th month, 7th day, going all the way out to the 10th day. Now, what is that Memorial Day? You got to get a calendar to know and see what that Memorial Day is about. Now, beyond those Memorial Days, we have a plethora of holy days, an abundance of them in our calendar. And some may think that they already did Feast of Weeks. They did Feast of Pentecost. You didn't do anything. You might as well do 4th of July. But I'll give you credit because you shooting darts and you hitting the dartboard. You close. But let's get precise with what we're supposed to do. Easter week starts at the summer solstice. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The only people telling you it starts 50 days after Passover are the Khazars. We covered them last week. These Turks, these Turkish people who are not the people are now telling you about your heritage. What do they know about Feast of Weeks? Nothing. What harvest do you have to heave and wave before Abba Yahweh right after Passover? Or even 50 days after Passover? Most people, I've been talking to people who are having gardens, they're just now getting some crops ready. Now is the time to harvest. How are you doing Feast of Weeks a month ago when they're harvesting now? Feast of Weeks is a 50-day feast that starts at the summer solstice, and then you count 50 days from there. So we just finished the 2nd week of the Feast of Weeks. And we're counting down these 7 weeks until we get to the day of ingathering. But to know when that day is, you got to get a calendar. Absolutely important, a necessity for anybody who calls himself a saint, anybody who calls himself an Israelite, anybody who wants to serve Abba Yahweh. You need to know when to do it along with how to do it. And Abba willing, we're going to be releasing the registration for the Feast of Ingathering hopefully soon. And it's a perfect time for anybody who wants to be consecrated in the 7th covenant. The scriptures talk about the saints who are sealed in the feast of the Most High. So if you're interested in being consecrated, being sealed in the new covenant, reach out to us. Talk to a priest, and Abba willing, we can make some time available. We're here every Shabbat, new months as well, but no time like a feast of Abba Yahweh. Along with that, saints, we got to get on the city of Adam. Abba willing, some changes are coming down the pike. And we're looking at changing even how we do YouTube. And so if you don't want to be left in the dark, left in the dust, make sure you get on the city of Adam. Make sure you register for that website, because that is our own private community where brothers and sisters can get together and enjoy the oblation line, enjoy official House of Wisdom membership, and Abba willing, we're going to be doing courses. The plan, the hope is that this series is going to be the last series on prophecy on our YouTube channel, at least going live. So if you want more about prophecy, you got to come to the city of Adam. Also, if you're interested in knowing how this calendar works and the intricacies of it, because it is a complicated thing, Abba willing, there's going to be a course on that on none other than where? City of Adam. So make sure you get that. And for anybody who's interested in becoming a priest, somebody consecrated to give oblations or to assist the priest as a porter or to sing as the holy singers did earlier, you got to get on the City of Adam. We're not going to be opening up for any random Joe Smo to come and say, I want to be a priest. You have to be trained. You have to be proven. You have to be dedicated to actually come and do this work. And so we're going to be pulling from people who are active on City of Adam, not just on City of Adam. Don't get an account and let the thing sit for months and think you're going to get in the priesthood. Somebody who's active, somebody who's engaged, somebody who's partaking, I'll be willing, you might be slated for the next AP class. So if you're interested in joining the ranks of the priesthood, got to get on the City of Adam. Another thing that is beneficial to members of the House of Wisdom on the City of Adam is the Tree of Life Academy. This is us trying to educate our own children because America, the school system teaches you that 4th of July is this great and honorable day where we celebrate when it's nothing but rubbish and trash. We have true feast days and true holy days. And we're going to talk about 4th of July in our Tree of Life Academy, Abba willing. We're going to talk about American history, but we're going to teach it from the true angle. I remember being in public school, and everything related to America is like just not just trash. They spin it like it's beautiful, like it's the best thing ever. Like this is the best thing that ever came across God's green earth is America. And that is nothing further from the truth. And we're going to teach the history of it. We're going to teach everything about it, how we came over here as slaves in bondage. And that was not something just to be overlooked. What did Obama just say? Obama just called in an interview talking about, I can reverence and admire George Washington and separate that from him being a slave owner. What? He's supposed to be the first black president, and that's the legacy you leave to all the black people who went and voted for you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you a coon from Ham. And so we see this is how they spin the American experience. Yes, they owned slaves, but it was a necessary evil to get us to all the advancements that were, man, bump all that. You enslaved us and brought us to a foreign land so far from where we came from, and then have lied to us and destroyed our communities. And then even when we tried to have some sort of society here, people complain about us having, being the lowest people. Like, why can't black people just get together and do something? Because we've tried over and over, and every time America comes and destroys it. I was looking at something. We always talk about the Tulsa Massacre, but there was a massacre in Wilmington, North Carolina in the late 1800s where they actually did a coup. They say it's the first and only coup that happened on American soil. Isn't that treason? To do a coup against your government? There were black people and a few white people for economic interests who came together and got into local government. And then you had the locals, the other people who didn't like that, and said, screw this government, we're going to topple it. And they did just that because it was benefiting black people. They were getting rich and well off in Wilmington, North Carolina, and yet they destroyed it. And they wonder why we're in the position we're in today. We've tried time and time again to have a society here. Martin Luther King tried to integrate us. And then as his life came to an end, he said, I fear I've integrated my people into a burning building. Yeah. He started to see the real light beyond the mountaintops. He started to really see this is not the place. For us, this is a place of imperialism. And so these are some of the things that we need to teach in the Tree of Life Academy. You don't learn about the Tulsa riots in school, in public school. You don't learn about the Wilmington Massacre in public school. But I'll be willing, we're going to teach on it. We are going to teach on it. So all those who are members of the House of Wisdom on the City of Adam, the link is available to pre-register, to pre-enroll your child in this. And we're doing it local, and we're doing it for those who are not local. We're going to have online courses as well. I'll be willing, but it's all dependent on everybody coming together and supporting. And so we're also going to have those who may not have children but still want to support the education of our community. I'll be willing, we're going to have that available as well. So stay tuned for that. And obviously, we can't have a feast of weeks without tithes. Tithes are a commandment of Abba Yahweh. Not like Creflo Dollar teaches it. Tithes are a 10% of your agricultural increase that you got in the field. And what are they used for? For the priest to take it and give oblations to Abba Yahweh. So if you have somebody telling you to pay tithes, but they have no knowledge of oblations, sacrifices, then you're not giving tithes. Just call it a donation. Because that's really what it is. Tithes are all about keeping the sacrifices going. And so we can pull the link up. The tithes are on the City of Adam because most of us don't have gardens. If you do, feel free to bring some of the stuff that you grew from your garden to the feast. I'm going to integrate that in our offerings. But for those who don't, those who live in an apartment building and have no gardens, have no agriculture increase, go to the City of Adam. Because the priest made sure that we have acceptable offerings to give to Abba Yahweh. Because all the stuff in this world is tainted. And so we went forth and made sure that we making our own wine, not put shellfish in it to try to refine it quicker. We didn't put any pork gelatin in it to try to refine it faster. We didn't do all these weird practices with it. We didn't crush the grapes with our feet. You see them doing that at them vineyards, they're like, this is the ancient Greek way. Yeah, we know. You got all your corns you got corns floating in your wine. Yeah, I'm not with that. We got a machine, a crank that we crank that thing and we clean it too. And we crush the grapes and crush the fruit. We're not putting our foot in it. We're not doing it the old European way. We are doing this the Hebraic way. Making wine fit for Hebrews to offer to Abba Yahweh. So you can support the priesthood by sending tithes here that get heaved up during the feast. And for those who are on the oblation line on the City of Adam, if you want to partake in, or you should be partaking in the same meat offering, the same drink offering as a priest, you can get the tithe shipped out to you as well, along with the oil, along with the incense and everything else. And it all supports the oblations of the priesthood. Now, there is money that is involved, and that's called a free will offering. And unlike tithes, it's not codified amongst the 10 Commandments. It's not a particular point of how much. It is according to how the Most High has blessed you. And so you can give freely. Keyword, free will offering. You give freely according to however the Most High has blessed you, whatever he has put on your heart to give. That is the difference between tithes and free will offerings. You can freely give in abundance, or if you only have a little, you can give freely a little bit, and it is all acceptable for Abba Yahweh. And once again, the priests take it and dedicate it to the service of Abba Yahweh, and it all goes not for us to get a jet so that one priest can floss around with his gold chain and be like, we're going to talk more about that on the 9th Hour podcast about some of these brothers, so to speak, who are not Israelites indeed, but instead ravenous wolves, and have been taking your money and going to the club with it. Taking your tithe money and buying Mercedes and G-Wagons with it. How is a G-Wagon benefiting the covenant of Abba Yahweh? Tell me that. How are you furthering the covenant of Abba Yahweh by pulling up to the club in a G-Wagon using people's tithes? You're not. But unfortunately, this is a common practice amongst many religious officials. Unfortunately, it's bled over to us, the Israelites, who are supposed to be the holy people of Abba Yahweh. This is not the place for us to talk about that, but we have a place to talk about it. It's called the 9th Hour. So we've been taking a little break from it to get some things in order, but Abba willing, we're going to get back on the 9th Hour podcast. So make sure you go and subscribe to that channel and turn on notifications to see when we actually post another video, because we got some things we want and need to talk about on our podcast channel. We did a whole renovation in the back create a studio for us to do that, along with all many other points of media that we plan on doing. So definitely tune in, join us there, and see some of the things that we're going to be talking about, Abba willing. And don't forget, while you're browsing the City of Adam, get your book on faith if you have not yet gotten it. Faith is of the utmost importance. I saw some Christians talking about, why all these Israelites supposed to be children of God don't talk about faith. Well, we do. The House of Wisdom talks about faith all the time. Matter of fact, Malakahan literally wrote the book on faith. And so get your book on faith. Understand true faith. Because the Christians talk about it too, but they do a bang-up job about it. They have no true understanding of what faith is. They've copied and pasted what the world has told them. They copied and pasted what Webster Dictionary has said, despite what's written in Hebrews 11:1. Faith is substance of things hoped for, evidence of things you cannot see. And so if the Most High raised a dead man, you can't see the Most High with your own physical eyes, but you can see the dead man rising. You can see the man with the withered arm being healed. You can see the knowledge of these end times coming to the saints and all things being brought back to our remembrance. Now that's faith. And those who have an ear to hear, let them hear. So go on the City of Adam, get your book, Messianic Faith, and understand that, because without faith, it is impossible to please Abba Yahweh. This is once again an essential for any saint of Abba Yahweh. And make sure on this YouTube channel, you like this video. Make sure you're sharing it, especially with those who are getting ready to celebrate 4th of July, commemorating these wicked kingdoms that have come in ignorance. Some people are going to be so hard-headed, they're going to do it anyway. You're not going to stop that. But do your duty and spread this abroad so that there is no excuse. Don't let the day come when the Messiah's like, what did you do on 4th of July? Did you keep that Shabbat? No, I was blowing off fireworks. You know, we were commemorating it with it was anathema. Let them have their proper warning, and hopefully they hear it. Hopefully they hear and they see and they understand the history that we're going through prophecy of John about these 10 horns, and see how this beast has come and set forth the modern day Western society that we know today. And make sure you subscribe to this channel as well. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you check to see if you're still subscribed, because I hear YouTube does that. They unsubscribe you from channels. Make sure you turn on post notifications, because we go live and sometimes the time varies. You know, there's a lot of factors that go into us going live. So make sure you turn on notifications so you know exactly when we're going live. And with that, we'll go ahead and shut down the announcements and get into this class. If you would, Kahan Gabaria, go to Revelation 17:7. If you would, AP candidate Cameron, go to Genesis 4, verse 6. And so, as we mentioned, we're in this series about the 10 horns. And as it was talked about in Revelations, well, he's going to tell us again what these 10 horns are if you forgot or if you didn't watch the previous classes. We're going to go in again quickly and see who this beast is that got power from Hasatan. And remember, his power is to blaspheme and accuse the saints. They came to make war with the woman in Revelation 12 and her offspring. That woman is Zion. And so the beast has come to do none other than make war with the chosen of Abba Yahweh. Let's read that, Revelation 17, pick up the 7th verse, Kahan.
The angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell you of the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns.
All right, jump down to verse 9. And so the angel is saying, John, why are you marveling? Let me break this down and show it to you, because it is a mysterious thing. Verse 9.
And here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings.
All right, so we covered this last week and we just expressed it. These 7 heads on the beast are 7 mountains, aka 7 empires and 7 kings. And in that, of course, we already saw Hasatan gave power to the beast to make war with the saints. And so these are not just random kingdoms, random empires. There's the Han Dynasty. The Chinese had empires, but what did the Chinese have to do with oppressing the saints?
Nothing.
So, yeah, nothing. Very little. And so there's some who directly went and oppressed us. And we covered them already. That's Mesopotamia, put Abraham in prison, sought to kill him because he was going to usher in the end of his empire. Then you had Egypt, self-explanatory. Then you had Assyria, destroyed Israel in Samaria and scattered them and brought them into slavery. Then you had Babylon. Once again, should be self-explanatory. Came and sacked Jerusalem and brought us into bondage for 70 years. Then you had the Greeks. We can see that in the Maccabees. It's crazy how people talk about the Apocrypha isn't valid. The Apocrypha is Israelite history. Between that void in the so-called Bible from the end of the Persian Empire to the beginning of the Romans with the Messiah. So you're skipping all the Greek history if you discredit the Apocrypha. And so the Apocrypha shows how the Greeks came and oppressed us, defiled our temple, and tried to make us accursed before Abba Yahweh. And then the last, the Romans. And once again, we already see they destroyed Jerusalem for good, so to speak. Scattered us abroad all into Africa. Let's finish that up. Read that verse, I should say. Gabari.
Revelation 17:10. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen.
And so we talked about this. 5 are fallen. John is living during the days of the Greeks, where the Romans have not yet reached its height. The Romans existed, but they have not yet reached their pinnacle. So 5 are fallen. Read on.
And one is.
One is. The Greeks are still competing for dominance with the Romans. So the Greek Empire has not yet fallen. Read on.
And the other is not yet come.
And the Romans have not yet reached their apex. Perfect prophecy to John. Let's read on.
And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th of the 7th, and goeth into perdition.
So they are one and the same. He is of the 7. The beast is these nations coming together to oppress the children of Israel. Let's read on.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings.
All right, once again, these 10 horns that are coming from this beast with 7 heads are 10 other kings. Read on.
Which have received no kingdom as yet.
Have not yet received power. John is talking about events that we already covered last week. The Ottomans came and really got some power in the 1200s. This is some serious prophecy. John is getting some information that won't come for over 1,000 years past his lifetime. Let's read on.
But receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast.
1 hour with the beast. So the beast, final kingdom coming to Rome, or final empire coming to Rome, gave the power to these 10 horns for a small space of time. The Roman Empire lasted a long time. Well before the Messiah was born, to 473, when the fall of the Western Roman Empire, but the Eastern Empire still was standing until it fell to the Ottomans. And so you had a long time with them. So compare that to the rest of these empires that are going to come. It's a short space. They only get an hour with the beast. Let's read on.
These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast.
So these all have one mind. In that doesn't mean they're unified together. It means that they are unified in establishing dominance of the Roman Empire that they all come from over the earth, and to dominate over and to do the will of the beast, of the dragon, which is to make war with Zion and her seed forever. They all have one mind to do that. Let's read on.
The 14th verse. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them.
And so in the end, ultimately, the Lamb is going to overcome them, but all 10 have to come. And then there's more to it that we're not getting into. We're going to focus on these 10 horns. Let's read on.
For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, which the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
So the whore that we talked about, or that was read about, that we're going to talk about later on in this series, Abba willing, came from and gathered together all the different nations, all different multitudes, all different people of all different languages. And so it's not a unified kingdom like what Daniel saw. It was the 10 toes of iron and clay. Strong, but divided. Multiple and unmixed. And so John is seeing the exact same thing. Now, we talked about it. The beast was given power by the dragon. This is what Hasatan is exploiting. Let's go to Genesis 4 and 6. And so we talked about it. He was given power to blaspheme against the saints. What does that mean? If we see in the 12th chapter, it called him the accuser of the brethren. Herein is the strength of the dragon, and therefore the strength of the beast, and therefore the strength of these 10 horns. All of them have a part in doing what Hasatan has taught them, which is to accuse us. How does those accusations work? Genesis 4, verse 6.
The Heavenly Father said unto Cain.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, go ahead and get Deuteronomy 28 then, AP Cam. Deuteronomy 28, 1. Go ahead, Genesis 4, 6.
And the Heavenly Father said unto Cain, why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted?
So we should understand the history and the story of what happened with Cain and Abel. Cain offered not the best, not the greatest. He just offered whatever. When the Most High said there's rules and there's orders, there's laws, there's statutes, there's commandments that you must abide by, Cain. Whereas Abel did just that. You're supposed to bring the firstling, the best, the choices of whatever you offer to Abba Yahweh. If you harvest crops like Cain, you must bring the best of the best. You bring the first fruits. Or if you're like Abel and you herd cattle or sheep, livestock, you must still bring the best of the best, the firstborn. And Abel did just that, brought the firstling of his sheep. And the Most High was well pleased. But he wasn't partisan, he was impartial. Cain just didn't do what he was supposed to do. He brought any old thing. He brought the rotten tomatoes and said, Abba Yahweh, go ahead and take this. What was the Most High supposed to do? If you go to a restaurant and somebody gives you some rotten tomatoes, you going to eat that? And who are we compared to Abba Yahweh? And so Abba Yahweh's like, I'm not accepting that, Cain. And so he told him, Cain, if you do well, if you do the commandments, the statutes, and the laws that I've given you, I will accept you and your sacrifice and bless you. But now what's on the flip side?
And if thou doest not well.
So if you transgress, if you don't do well, then what?
Sin lieth at the door.
Why is everybody going to John 3 to go and try to break down sin? Why are you skipping over the entire Bible? I thought we were supposed to be students of the Bible. I thought we were supposed to do better than the Christians. The Christians do the same thing. They skip all over this and they go straight to John. When sin is mentioned here, this is how sin works. If you don't do well, meaning if you transgress, what's not doing well? Is it you failed a test in high school? The Most High cares about that? No, that got nothing to do with sin. But if you don't do well, meaning like Cain, if you don't bring your first fruits on the day that you're supposed to in the Feast of Weeks, you have transgressed the commandments of Abba Yahweh. You have not done well. And now the consequence is sin. Not the action that you took, the consequence. Sin does what? Read that again, Hangabaria.
If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door.
Now sin is lying at the door. Since when does a verb do another verb? If sin is the action of doing wrong, how can it lie at the door? How can it be lying in wait like the scriptures say? When you're lying in wait, there's a scripture that talks about that. If a man accidentally kills somebody, there's a statute, there's judgments for that. You don't put him to death, right? But now it talks about if a man presumptuously comes upon his neighbor and kills him, lying in wait.
Yeah.
What does that mean, lying in wait? That means I'm in the bushes. I'm at his front door waiting on him to come home. I know his work schedule. He come home at 5:45. I'm here at 5 p.m. on the dot. Waiting on him, lying in wait at his door, ready to slay him because I hate him. When can an action do that? Can running lie in wait? Can jumping lie in wait? Can driving lie in wait? No. Verbs can't do other verbs. Only nouns, entities, beings interact with verbs in that way. And so sin is something other than just doing wrong. Sin is lying at the door, not the door of your house, but the door of your mind. Let's read on, priest.
And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou
Once
shalt...
again, unto thee shall be his desire. Sin is a he that has desires. How is it that a verb has desires? It doesn't make sense. But it only makes sense when you recognize that sin is not a verb. Sin is not when you do wrong, you've sinned. When you break a commandment of Abba, you've sinned. When you break a commandment, you've trespassed. And now the accuser of the brethren comes that we read about in Revelation 12 and says, I saw Gabaria working on the Shabbat, Abba. I'm telling. And he's accusing you day and night. And he says, I desire Gabaria. I desire that brother because I saw what he did in the shadows of the night. I desire that sister because I saw what she was doing on the holy day of Abi. I desire you. And this is what Hasatan is doing. I desire you. Why? For this reason. Read on.
And thou shalt rule over him.
This is what Satan has learned from the times of the beginning. For him to get rule and dominion, for him to give power to the beast, to give them rule, he must teach you this law of sin. He must teach the nations this law of sin. Lie in wait, and when they trespass, accuse them. And when you accuse them, if they don't atone for it, I'll be how his hands are tied. He can't do nothing. He already spoke it. He's not a liar. He's not a man that he should lie. And so I shall rule over him. Sin shall rule over them. And now when you go to war and when you fight against them, they're going to be easy targets because the Most High is no longer protecting them. This is corroborated here. Moses said the same thing in Deuteronomy 28. We're going to pick up in the first verse. AP Cam.
And it shall come to pass, thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Abba Yahweh, thy God, to observe and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Most High will set thee on high above all nations on the earth. And all these blessings shall come to thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Abba Yahweh.
All right, so if you hearken unto Abba Yahweh, if you do his will, you shall be blessed. This is the same thing we read in Genesis 4. If you do the will of Abba Yahweh, you will be blessed. If you do well, you shall be accepted. But now there's a flip side to this. Let's go now to the 15th verse.
Verse 15, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Abba Yahweh, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day.
Here's the flip side. Here's the same writings in Genesis 4. If you do not well, sin will bring about this curse upon you. So we see that Deuteronomy 28 is really Moses reiterating to them the law of sin. And so when we break this down as Israelites and we just talk about, not keeping the commandments, we didn't keep the feast days, worship idols, you're missing a key point in this. You're missing the law of sin. You're missing all the intermediate steps. And if you don't really understand the full process, you're always going to be a victim to it. The same brothers that talk about Deuteronomy 28 will still say the law is done away, or not the law is done away with, but that the sacrifices are done away with.
Yeah.
How are you going to stop sin from being cursed upon you if you think sacrifices are done away with? That's the only remedy that Abba Yahweh ever gave for sin. He didn't say bow down on your knees at your bed and say, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's not getting rid of sin. He didn't say get together on Passover and say Kwam Yasharala. That's not going to get rid of sin.
He didn't say, I know your heart. Don't worry about it.
Right. He didn't say rehearse the righteous acts because I'm going to bring something later. No. He gave you the answer now. It's the lamb that's going to overcome Hasatan. The lamb that's going to overcome this beast that has learned this law of sin. It's crazy because these nations know the law of sin, but we don't. And they're using that to their advantage. If they can keep us ignorant, they have an easy target. Just like Balaam, as we're going to see. If you can keep us ignorant, or if you can cause us to trespass, you have an easy target. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, like they say. But now, when you give us spiritual weaponry and we know how to use it, now you got in the boxing ring with the heavyweight champion. And you was just that dude. Y'all see that dude? I think he's slow. That dude will come in and he'll be like, "There's this box." And he'll sneak you and run off. Y'all seen him? I forgot his name. Y'all remember his name? Anybody remember his name? There's a video. That dude, he'll come and be like, he'll challenge boxers, like professional boxers. What's his name? You remember his name? Okay. Y'all probably know. He'll go and sneak.
He challenged Wilder.
Yeah.
Wilder guy.
Yep.
Got his behind tore up.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's Hasatan. That's Hasatan. If you ignorant, he can get the pot shots off and run off. But now when we know what we're coming up against, now it's like, hey, lock them doors.
Yeah. Now you can't.
We about to unlock a can of whooping in here. And so that is what we get when we understand the law of sin. And we understand our true strength. These nations are fighting from heaven. By their deity, their power, the same God John Adams invoked, Hasatan, the dragon, the beast. We have to fight from heaven as well with a power greater that can overcome Hasatan. And we use the bread and the blood of the lamb to overcome Hasatan and to overcome these curses that came upon us. Let's finish that up. Let's actually read it again, verse 15, AP Cam.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Abba Yahweh, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So these curses really are the law of sin. It is not just, just some magical thing that you don't understand. It's sin is on you. And when sin is on you, the blessings of Abba Yahweh leave. And now Hasatan has accused you and caused the nations to reign over you. Let's now jump down to verse 68. And we can understand how these things happen to us. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68.
And the Most High shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Because you were ignorant of the law of sin. Because you allowed sin to reign in your mortal body, and now Hasatan has cursed you, and now he's able to have his beast, these nations, that have the same spirit of Egypt upon them to take you into bondage. Not Egypt itself. That's what some of these anti-Hebrew Israelites teach. Those Christians who go against it. Like, this is talking about Egypt, literal Egypt. Why would Israel go to Egypt on ships? Why would you go? That's like saying, we're going to go from Atlanta to Birmingham, Alabama on ships.
Yeah.
Why would we do that? When we can take cars.
Good luck to you.
Yeah, right. What you going to do? You're going to go all the way down to Savannah, get on the boat, go around Florida, and then come back up in the Gulf of, the Gulf of America now, and then go up to Mobile. That's what you're going to do? And then try to go the river up to, that don't make sense. You only take a boat, a ship, if the path to a land is across an ocean. Just like what happened to us. And we already showed this last week with the Ottomans. How they came on the east coast of Africa and started to enslave us in the Indian Ocean on ships and brought us way far east, all the way out to places as far as China. Had them talking about us with a Xingji. Literally, calling us Xingji. We are the Zans. That was their term for the Zanzibarian people that they brought over who were Bantus that were being traded by the Ottomans. And so we were already being traded on ships by the Ottomans way before these European powers that we're going to talk about today, Abba willing. That was the first horn, but now we're going to talk about some of these other horns. So Abba Yahweh said that if you don't keep my covenant, and you allow Hasatan to accuse you, and sin is on you, you will be cursed. And here is the epitome of that curse. you shall be brought to bondage, slavery again by ships. And as I mentioned before, this didn't happen en masse to a whole nation in world history except to us. Now, yeah, there were other people who were slaves. There were other people who were brought into slavery on ships, but you're going to see how they were treated completely different. And it wasn't a full nation. You might have a few people going on ships, but we're the only people who were transported from a homeland, lost our culture, and millions of us were dispersed by ships. Let's read on.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
So the land that I have given you, you shall no more see it again. Read on.
Continuing verse 68, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies, for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
No man is going to take you out of that situation. Only Abba Yahweh can redeem you. Remember, the cause of the problem was spiritual. These nations, the beast, learned the law of sin. So we should all learn the law of sin. And if we learn it, we can combat it. If you go to court and you don't know the law surrounding what your case is, how are you going to fight it? It's the same thing with the courts in heaven. You have to know the laws that surround what you're getting into. There is a law of sin, as written about in Romans. This is the law of sin, Genesis 4 and 7. If you do not do well, if you transgress, sin is lying at the door. Just like Deuteronomy 28, if you do not do well, you shall be cursed. It is the same thing. We only got or put on ships and brought over into bondage because of the spirit of sin. Now, let's move over, right? We're going to talk about, well, actually, we talked about this last week. Let's look at that article. You can go and read it, AP Cam. A 1492 letter regarding Jewish property in Spain from the Museum of Jewish Heritage. So when I look at certain things about, the Jews, the juice boxes,
Little hats.
yeah, I don't like to use the sources of the conspiracy theories. I will read them to get the understanding, to get where I need to go. But in terms of actually using it, I like to let them condemn themselves. And so in the class, I'm going to bring out these articles from them. We're going to the Museum of Jewish Heritage.com and reading from them to see what they said. Let's look at the key points. We're not really concerned about the letter that was written about their property. We're going to extract something else from there. So let's read that part you see right there, AP Cam. Can it, Cam?
Ferdinand and Isabella initially signed the decree for the expulsion of all Jews residing within their domain on March 31st, 1492.
All right, so we've covered this in several classes. We covered this in the class about the 10 weeks of Enoch, about how the Moors were an Israelite group that went and conquered in Spain, in the Iberian Peninsula, and then brought to them civility. Crazy. They talk about I'm a civilize these savages, these Native Americans, but they had to be civilized. They had to be taught basic things. They forgot about bathing. Literally forgot about bathing. Didn't know about it.
Who does that?
Right. You don't bathe. And some people still carry that same mindset today. There's some people who say it's not good to bathe every day. Yeah. In this heat wave, you don't bathe every day? You don't bathe twice, 3 times maybe a day? They will literally tell you that's not good. You're washing away all the good bacteria and good oils.
Yeah.
No, you're washing away the funk and the disease.
Yeah. How
That's
about
what you're washing
that?
away. Yeah. And where did they get this from? The Hebrew culture. They were washing with water all the time. It makes sense why they say you get baptized once, because that was their culture.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a shower one time. I only took a shower as a baby. I'm good. I don't take any showers anymore. But in actuality, the Hebrews were washing all the time. I mean, there's so many things.
It's our culture.
It was our culture. You touch a dog that's dead, wash. You go do something that makes you unclean, wash. You go to the temple to worship Abba Yahweh, you wash. You baptize. And so the Moors carried this over from our culture and said, yo, man, y'all stink. Spain is smelly. Portugal is smelly. Let me show you how to use a washcloth. Yeah, right. Let me show you what Malachi was talking about. It said Fuller's soap. Let me show you how to wash. Right. These were some, all right, anyway, the point being, they then returned favor by expelling them. Let's read on. And we covered this last week, how they were expelled in that Inquisition and the Reconquista. Let's read on.
Spanish Jews, who numbered around 300,000, were required to immigrate or convert to Catholicism.
Immigrate or convert. So they had a choice. Not just leave, but to convert. Let's read on. If we cut out, I just saw the lights flicker. I was trying to stop you from getting this message. So for those online, if we cut out, we're going to keep going. Hopefully the stream comes back and you just hear us, wherever we pick up at. But hopefully it doesn't happen. But, if you hear it cut out, that's probably why. Let's read on.
By the end of the July, the same year, giving them a period of 4 months to liquidate all their property, vacate their homes and businesses, and venture abroad. The magnitude of the undertaking and time frame given resulted in a social and economic chaos, to which this letter responds directly.
All right, so now remember the time period that we're in. There's a lot going on. Now, a lot of things are changing hands. This is the time period of these 10 horns. And so you see a lot of kingdoms coming, a lot of kingdoms falling, a lot of people moving around. And remember, you had these Moors coming and teaching people in Spain. And they had people with them too. Remember, you had Eastern Europeans coming over as well, joining them, being taught not just how to wash. That's just one thing. They taught them spirituality as well. They taught them about the covenant of Abba Yahweh. And so in that, you had a lot of converts. Before this Inquisition, before the Reconquista, you had converts to what the Moors and these Israelites were teaching them. But now in 1492, you had this expulsion of them. You had the Reconquista, where the Spanish and the Portuguese are reconquering their lands. And you have them telling them they can leave or they can convert. Let's read on.
King Bayezid, the ruler of the Ottoman Empire, remarked, "Do they call the Ferdinand a politic? Oh, my bad. Do they call this Ferdinand a politic prince who can thus impoverish his own kingdom and enrich ours?"
So as we covered last week, the Ottomans like, yeah, we'll take your Jews. We'll take your juice boxes. Bring them over here. Remember, they're not all the originals. A lot of them are converts. Now, let's read on and see what it says as we conclude with this article.
Within the year, 175,000 Jews left Spain.
All right, remember, they estimated that there were 300,000 Jews in Spain. They say a little over half left. What did the rest do?
While those who stayed were forced to renounce their faith.
Now, they renounced their faith and converted to Catholicism. And as we're going to see, they converted. They said they converted. And now, think about this, right? You're at a time where slavery is about to kick off, where they're about to look at these dark-skinned people as inferior. You think that they're letting these dark-skinned people stay in their land and convert to Catholicism? So some are being expelled. Those with some melanin in their skin are being expelled. And obviously there's some who choose not to. There's some who say, I'm going to leave too. But there's some who convert. And if you have, just like today, right, you have some people calling themselves, the chosen people, the juice boxes. But you'll never know unless they tell you. Because why? They look just like a German. They look just like a Russian. They look just like a Ukrainian. Did y'all know that Volodymyr Zelensky is a juice box? Well, does he look like it? Does he talk about it? No. You would think he's Roman Catholic. You would think that. He's Eastern Orthodox. They learned to do this in the Spanish Inquisition to convert to Catholicism. And now, if you convert, they're none the wiser. Oh, you look like me. You've converted. You're just a regular Catholic. And so this is what you had going on. This is where you start having that split or that change from the Jews being considered those who were melanated from Africa or from East Asia, so to speak, Central Asia, the Middle East, and those having, lack of melanin in their skin tone. This is when that change started to happen. You have exoduses, you have people moving all across the earth. You have the Ottomans saying, welcome in. Bring those European ones, not the dark-skinned ones. Those are the ones we enslaved. Remember, they looked at them like nothing. Their black slaves, as we covered last week, from Zanzibar, were like I said, they were the beater, the car you run down to the ground, you put all the miles on. They looked at the Eastern European slaves as those high class. That was the Bugatti. You bring that out on a special occasion. That's how they looked at these slaves. So the Spanish had a similar mindset. They are not going to let these black people convert to Catholicism and stay in their country. As we're going to show, Abba willing, in this class, it was about having this pure blood. And so some stayed and converted, and we're going to show that. Let's finish that up, and then if Gabaria, you will go to this article, The Roads of the Jewish Portuguese Diaspora.
The Jewish presence in Spain was virtually extinguished for the next several hundred years. This letter chronicles a moment in that tragic and transformative episode in Jewish history, after which Jews went on to disseminate Sephardic culture and innovation around the world.
All right, so they're saying they spread across the world and brought their culture with them. But remember, a lot of them, almost about half of them that were there converted. And a lot of them had that European heritage. Now, let's drop that. Let's further prove that in this article from this website called Jewish Tours Paris. Once again, it's not an article disparaging the juice boxes. It's one actually talking about just their history, trying to chronicle their history. And this article is called The Roads of the Jewish Portuguese Diaspora. Let's read that top part right there.
Where it says, in our recent.
Read the headline.
Jewish roads to India, Brazil, and the Caribbean and America.
All right. We're going to be coming back to this article a little bit, but let's read this part we have here.
In our recent article about the local Parisian exhibits that we held in the Mares town hall around the amazing Jewish Portugal diaspora, we insisted that the contrary to the expulsion of the Jews from Spain in 1492, the Jews in Portugal were all converted to Christianity.
So they say while Spain was focused on you could get out of here or you could convert, Portugal was focused on conversion. And so they indeed converted. Now we're going to jump around in this article, jump down now to we're talking about during these years of prosperity. So now the Portuguese, which we're just going to spill it, that is the first or the second horn. That is the next horn, along with Spain, the third horn. I believe we're going to be covering that in this class. And so during the years that Portugal started to get its footing, it had its hour with the beast. Right now, who even thinks about Portugal? Nobody, really. Who thinks about Spain? And you don't think about them that much. But at one point, they dominated the known world. And so we're talking about Portugal right now. During these years of Portuguese prosperity, read on.
Networks were woven with relatives in other Portuguese strongholds in India, mainly the fortress of Goa and Cochin. Today's Mathincherry, which already serves as a refuge for some new Christians.
So when they say new Christians, right here, they're not talking about Christians. They're talking about converts. They're talking about people who converted to Christianity. So they're new Christians. Who else are they talking about but the juice boxes? And so they're talking about now how in India, Portugal was going to India to get spices, and they had trade routes. So the Portuguese had a navigator who they say was the quote-unquote first to circumnavigate Africa. And he found the path to go to India, get spices, and come back to Portugal. So the Portuguese, in their prosperity, made inroads to India. We see Portugal's influence reign all throughout the earth. Now, what happened with these quote-unquote new Christians in India?
In coaching, they would thus meet local Jews who...
So these converts went to India and met Jews that were already there. Once again, going back all the way to the Assyrians, going back to the Ottomans, before Portugal even exported these people to India. Now, these are people working with Portugal, not slaves of Portugal. I'm talking about these new Christians they're talking about. These are people working with Portugal, trading for Portugal, as we're going to see a little bit later. So they met local Jews. Read on.
Whose presence in Malabar coast or in the Malabar coast goes back to the 1st century.
So they said their heritage goes back to the 1st century, or even what?
Some records even say that the first Jews sailed to South India on ships of King Solomon.
It talked about Solomon reigned from the river of Egypt to Hamath, all the way out in the east. They're saying some were under, or the reports go that some were under Solomon. Read on.
Others that they came during the Babylonian exile.
Or I would correct them and say the Assyrian captivity. So they're saying some came during the Assyrians, who did indeed spread them all the way out to the Medes, as the scriptures tell you, which is India. Now, how do they describe these Jews?
And who had a synagogue in Kerala since the 12th century.
So in the 12th century, which is 1100s, they had built a synagogue there. They came together. Once again, read on.
While the local Jews were known as black Jews.
So these local Jews in India were called black. I wonder why. Were they doing black magic? Yeah, or were they black? Now, what were these new Christians, these converts, what were they called?
The newcomers became known as white or foreign Jews. How do you pronounce that? Paradisi?
Paradisi, a Hindi word. So you see that they're actually integrated into the Hindu culture, the Indian culture, but still practicing their ancient customs. And then you had these Portuguese new converts who decided, now I'm going to renounce the Judaism I was taught by these Moors, and I'm going to convert to Catholicism. And you see clearly when they started doing expeditions for Portugal, and they went all the way to India to get some spices, there were Jews already there. They said, I'm the black Jew, you're the white Jew. What were they talking about? You're pure and your clothes are white and you're just holy. No. They said, well, I'm dark skinned, you light skinned, you a Jew? Okay, let's talk. You know, you remember the Moors? All right, let's talk. And so you see how at this point, this juncture in time, is when you actually see that flip happening. Is when you actually start to really see. I mean, it was already going on. Even the Messiah went to a woman in Samaria, and she said, our fathers worship here. And she said, you don't know who your fathers are. They are not the Israelites. So it's already been happening, but this is when essentially all became lost. This is when all started to become where now the popular notion to be a juice box is to be lily white and European looking. Whereas now you got rabbis that say, I heard about one, someone asked him, can a black person be a Jew? Can a dog be a Jew? That was the response.
Wow.
And this is how they treat us.
Yep.
This is how they look at us. When there were original ones well before them who were just that, black.
Yeah.
And we clearly see it here. They converged in India from Portugal, and they said, I'm black, you white. And so over time, you're going to see them having a strong role in Portugal and in Spain. But before we get there, let's go to Jasher 61. Pick up in the 5th verse, AP Candidate Cam. And if you go to Jasher 64 and 1. Now, what we see here, you have a survival tactic. Because we're going to show a little bit later, Abba willing, but these people did not renounce their so-called Judaism. But they looked the part. They looked European. So they said, I'm going to convert to Catholicism. I'm going to be a new Christian. And so when you'll start to see, Abba willing, when they started getting their own little place away from Spain, away from Portugal, they started going back to their culture. Now, or their culture that they were taught, not their culture. And so you see that these are people that tend to just flow with whatever nation has power at the time. And this is part of their history. Let's show that in Jasher. Jasher chapter 61, verse 5.
And Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, captain of the host to Angeas, king of Dinhaba, was still daily enticing Angeas to prepare for battle to fight the sons of Jacob in Egypt. And Angeas was unwilling to do this thing, for his servants had related to him all the might of the sons of Jacob, what they had done unto them in their battle with the children of Esau.
All right, so now we see Esau, or Edomites, gathering together saying, let's go to war with the children of Israel while they're in Egypt. And daily, day and night, trying to accuse them, saying, let's do it. And he was like, nah, they've beaten us before. Let's read on.
And Zepho was in those days daily enticing Angeas to fight the sons of Jacob in those days. And after some time, Angeas hearkened to the words of Zepho and consented to him to fight the sons of Jacob in Egypt. And Angeas got all his people in order, a people numerous as the sand which is upon the seashore, and he formed his resolution to go to Egypt to battle. Verse 8, and amongst the servants of Angeas was a youth 15 years old, Balaam, the son of Beor.
All right, so we already covered this before. Balaam was a young man amongst the sons of Esau in the army of Angeas. To do what? Was he a soldier? Was he a spearman? Was he a swordsman? Was he an archer? What was he doing? What was his role in the army?
And the youth was very wise and understood the art of witchcraft.
He was a witch in the army of Angeas, of the Edomites. Let's now go, Gahan Gabari, to Jasher 64. Actually, you can go to 64 and 1, AP Candidate Cam, and you grab Jasher 67 and 8. So now we see the origins of Balaam amongst the tribes of Esau.
And Balaam, the son of Beor, was at the time with Angeas in the battle. And when he saw that Zepho prevailed over Angeas, he fled from there and came to Shittim.
Look at him. Look at Balaam. When the person who he's supposed to have pledged his allegiance to started to fall in battle, he said, I'm out of here. I'm moving on to this nation. I'm moving on to Chittim. Anybody know who the Chittimites are? Kittim? Anybody know who they are in the pantheon of the nations? I don't call it pantheon, but in the lineage of nations. Anybody know who they are? Oh, absolutely. There you go. They are the Romans. So this is before the Romans really got some power, some real strength. But they went to war with, Zepho, these Edomites, and the Chittimites, the Romans, who would become the Romans, actually won. And so you saw, you had Zepho, he left. He actually went and fled to the Chittimites before this. And so you saw this mixing of the Romans and the Edomites from a long time ago, before Rome even was really on the map. But nonetheless, Balaam is supposed to be committed to Angeas. And when he saw he wasn't even dead yet. He just saw he was losing. So I'm out. I'm jumping ship, and I'm going to the Romans. I'm going to Chittim. Read on.
Verse 2. Zepho and the children of Chittim received with him great honor.
Now they knew who he was and said, come on in. Come on in. We can use that gift. It wasn't their time yet to really get that power. They're going to get it later down the line, as we've already covered. But this is still the day of the Egyptians, not the Chittimites. Let's read on.
For Zepho knew
Or
Balaam's
Kittimites.
wisdom, and Zepho gave unto Balaam many gifts and remained with him.
Many gifts of divination. Let's jump now to Joshua chapter 67 and pick it up in verse 8. Go on, Gabaria.
And it was after the death of the king of Chittim that Balaam, the son of Beor, fled from the land of Chittim.
What are you doing? Again? Once that king is dead, I'm out of here. They don't have any power anymore.
He's grimy.
Yeah, they don't have any strength. Now where'd he go?
No loyalty, whatever.
None. This is in their heritage. Oh, yeah, I'll convert. And then think about that. All these nations, they don't serve the same deities. I mean, it's all Hasatan. But they all frame it differently. The Romans, they have their own pantheon of deities. Balaam said, oh, okay. Yeah, whatever. Talking about Mars? Yeah, I'll be your god of war. Now what happens when he went to, what is the next country he went to?
It says that Balaam, the son of Beor, fled from the land of Chittim, and he went and came into Egypt.
He went to Egypt now. Let me go where there's some strength. Oh, y'all into Kemet? Y'all believe in, mummification, and y'all gonna go into the spiritual? Yeah, whatever. I'm just here to do one thing. That's to enchant and get some riches and to do the bidding of my father Hasatan.
Yeah.
And if you part of the beast, you part of the beast. I've seen it in a vision. You the next one. I went to the Romans thinking that I went above the time. The Romans going to come way later. Right now, the day of the Egyptians. Let's read on.
The 9th verse. And Pharaoh received him with great honor, for he had heard of his wisdom.
Look at that. Pharaoh didn't say, man, you jumping sides all the time. He said, come on in, Balaam. You got some power. You got some gifts. Come on in. Read on.
And he gave him presents and made him for a counselor and aggrandized him.
Now, if we can use Deuteronomy 28 to understand our history, can we not use this to determine somebody else's history? Who's doing the same thing as what we see Balaam doing? Who's doing the exact same thing? Going from nation to nation and getting aggrandized. Becoming counselors, becoming the top, getting great honor in all these different countries. Who's doing that? Nah, not just them. Nah, somebody else. But that's for another class.
Yes, tiny involved.
Yeah. Real tiny. Let's jump down to verse 17.
And the king said to all his wise men, interpret, I pray you, the dream which I dreamed, that I may know it.
So we got to skip for time's sake, but the dream was an old man came with a scale before the Pharaoh and put all the wise men of Pharaoh on one side and put a lamb on the other side, and the lamb outweighed them all.
Ooh.
And he's like, what is this? What's going on? Kind of same thing like Nebuchadnezzar. And Most High's like his dream. But they didn't have the wise men like Daniel. He had somebody else. He said, Balaam, come forward. Read on.
And Balaam, the son of Beor, answered the king and said unto him, this means nothing else but a great evil that will spring up against Egypt in the latter days. For a son will be born to Israel, who will destroy all Egypt and its inhabitants, and bring forth the Israelites from Egypt with a mighty hand.
So look at how Hasatan is giving power to the beast. This is the second head. And you see now it being told through Balaam, the person he chose to deliver that message, to say, this is that woman with the sun and the moon under her feet and the crown of 12 stars getting raised atop of your kingdom. You have to now make war with them. Read on.
Now therefore, O king, take counsel upon this matter, that you may destroy the hope of the children of Israel and their expectations, before this evil arises against Egypt. The king said unto Balaam, and what shall we do unto Israel? Surely after a certain manner did we at first counsel against them, and could not prevail over
So
them.
once again, you actually saw them going before this to Balaam and said, the Israelites are getting too plenteous. What can we do to stop them? And Balaam actually told them the same thing he told the Midianites. You cannot prevail. You will not prevail against them. So they're saying, I had the dream. What are we going to do? You just said I can't prevail. Read on.
22.
Actually, jump down for time's sake. Jump down to verse 49. Because he did now say, but here's something you can do.
If it please the king, let him order all their children, which shall be born from this day forward, to be thrown in the water.
It was Balaam who gave the Egyptians the idea to do that, to go and kill the firstborn of the children of Israel. It was Balaam who deceived them and made them do that for the want and the desire for their own power and their own kingdom from the beast. Let's read on.
For by this canst thou wipe away their name.
And for time's sake, let's drop that. Let's go now to Jasher 70, verse 33, AP Cam, and see what else is going on. And so we see Balaam went from Esau to now Chittim, now to Egypt, giving them counsel, telling them what to do and what not to do, teaching them from these strange rites, this witchcraft that he had been gifted with. Jasher 70, verse 33.
And when Moses grew up in the king's house, Athea, the daughter of Pharaoh, considered him as a son, and all the household of Pharaoh honored him, and all the men of Egypt were afraid of him. And he daily went forth and came into the land of Goshen, where the brethren, the children of Israel, were, and Moses saw them daily in shortness of breath and hard labor.
So not only did they counsel them to kill the firstborn, he said Balaam also was the one who told them, put them in hard bondage. Put hard bondage upon them. And so Moses now saw that. And they're going to tell them how they got into this position of working and sweating all day, all night, having that position upon them. Read on. What did they say to Moses?
Verse 35, and Moses asked them, saying, wherefore is this labor meted out unto you day by day?
He said, who is saying you got to work 12-hour shifts?
7 days a week.
7 days a week, and then barely have enough money to even make ends meet. Who's telling you got to do that and be stressed out? Who is measuring out or meting out that matter of work to you? It's one thing to make a brick. It's another thing to make a brick for 12 hours straight. Read on.
And they told him all that had befallen them, and all the injunctions which Pharaoh had put upon them before his birth. And they told him all the counsels which Balaam the son of Beor had counseled against them.
So he said it was Balaam who went to the Egyptians and counseled with them and told them to put this upon us. And so Balaam was like, this is how you're going to get them in transgression. Get them to forget Abba Yahweh. They talking about they want to go worship. They talking about they want the Shabbat off. How about you make them work 7 days a week for 12 hours?
He hated us too.
Yeah, they only have enough time to sleep. And then in that, you can accuse them. How about we do that? Let's read on. And also kill their firstborn males.
Yeah.
What he had also counseled against him in order to slay him when he had taken the king's crown from off his head.
So we talked about this in another series. When you see the spirit of Egypt, it didn't just happen to fall upon that country. That's talking about Revelation that has the spirit of Sodom and Egypt. It came by counsel of somebody like Balaam.
Yeah.
Let's read on.
And Moses heard these things. His anger was kindled against Balaam, and he sought to kill him.
Now Moses was a serious man who loved the people. He was
Yeah.
like, oh, Balaam did all this?
Yeah, we're going to get him.
Oh, I got something for him. Let me roll up on Balaam. See what he working with. And like a tiny hat, what did Balaam do? Did Balaam say, all right, let's do it. Let's go to war. What did Balaam do? Read on.
You know what he did.
Yeah. Said, oh, I can't do this. Read on.
Continuing verse 38, and he was in ambush for him day by day.
Look at Moses, man. Moses was serious. He was in ambush
He was
waiting.
waiting for his
I know
guy.
his schedule. And Balaam, probably being a witch, saw it like, oh, Moses is about to kill me. And like, let me divert my path. Let me go this way. Let me go that way. What did Balaam do?
Verse 39, and Balaam was afraid of Moses, and he and his 2 sons rose up and went forth from Egypt.
Anybody remember who his 2 sons are?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who's that? We'll come back to it later. Think on it. Balaam took his 2 sons that he had in Egypt and did what?
And they fled and delivered their souls.
They fled.
He talk a lot of
can't
junk
do this.
but can't fight.
Yeah, exactly. You over there accusing them when Moses wanted to actually duke it out. He said, I gotta run. I gotta scram.
And run he did.
You saw that dude. I think it was a dude was named Rabbi Shmuley. Somebody was coming up to him talking about, hey, how you feel about guns? Are you okay with this? As soon as the police car came, he said, officer, he's assaulting me.
Wow.
Literally, that's how he ran, like a little girl.
Yeah.
That is who, well, like I said, you got to get on the city of Adam so we can talk raw. But if the shoe fits, wear it.
Yeah.
When Moses was ready to roll on him, he fled. He ran away like he did, like he ran away from Zepho, like he ran away from Aegeus, like he ran away from Kittim. Now he's running away from Egypt. Let's read on.
This guy's a fugitive.
Yeah. Doesn't that fit somebody else too? Let's read on.
And betook themselves to the land of Cush, to Kikianus, king of Cush.
Now he went to Cush. Kikianus, the king. Let's go now to Joshua 85. You can continue on. Not 85, my bad. Let's go now to Joshua 72 and verse 3. And then Kahan Gabar, you get Joshua 85 and 40. Now, he ran from Egypt and went to Cush. So he was just going from nation to nation to nation. Now, what happened at when he was in Cush? Let's look at what happened. What did he do? Did he benefit society? Did he make the world better? Did he make the kingdom of Cush better for Kikianus?
And when Kikianus went out, he left Balaam the magician.
What do they call Balaam? A magician. Doing magic. Doing dark arts. This is who Balaam was. Doing dark rituals. I bet you he had a mattress and some tunnels and bloodstains on it. Maybe I'm going too far. Called him a magician. Read on.
With his 2 sons.
You remember what their names were? What are they? There you go. Janus and Jambres.
Yeah.
Had his 2 sons down in Cush, probably sticking out like a sore thumb. Let's read on.
To guard the city and the lowest sort of the people of the land.
So Kikianus the Cushite trusted Balaam. He got so ingratiated with him, he said, I have to go and quell this rebellion. I need you now to look after the land while I'm gone. Read on.
So Kikianus went forth to Aram and the children of the east, and he fought against them and smote them. And they fell down, wounded before Kikianus and his people. And he took many of the captives, and he brought them under his objection, as at first. And he encamped upon their land to take tribute from them as usual. And Balaam, the son of Beor, when the king of Cush had left him to guard the city and the poor of the city, he rose up and advised with the people of the land to rebel against King Kikianus.
He wrecked his kingdom.
Wow.
Read on.
It sounds familiar,
Yeah, don't that sound familiar?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar. It's like I say, if we can look at scripture to determine who the Israelites are, we should be able to look at the scripture to determine who these people are.
Yeah.
Read on.
They probably sucked them dry.
Absolutely.
Of all their finances.
Look at what he did too. He told them to rebel, and then what?
Verse 6, not to let him enter the city when he should come home.
Locked him out of his own city. Said, don't let him in. Look at Balaam. Look at what he was doing. Hopping from nation to nation and extracting it, sucking it dry for its resource, for its own benefit.
Yeah, wow.
Look at the spirit that's on them. Who is this? Who has this same spirit on them? I wonder. I just wish an answer was given. I just wish we knew who is just like this. If only. Let's go to Joshua 85, verse 40.
And the elders of Moab counseled with the elders of Midian what to do in order to save their lives from Israel.
Now we catch up to modern time, or not modern times, but what we actually see in the Bible. Jump down to verse 42. Now, the interesting thing, scriptures, Bible just picks up just with Midian. And then he's just some random guy named Balaam. But you see, Balaam had a long history.
Yeah.
That's why they knew to go to him. They didn't just choose a random person, like roll some dice and say, Balaam. Or like they tell you casting lots is, pulling sticks. Balaam got the short stick, you're going to be our chanter today. That's not how it worked. They knew his history. Jump down to verse 42.
And you can't know this if you don't read any other books. Jasher brings this out clearly. But if you don't read anything else, you'll never know.
Absolutely.
42. Jasher, 85 and 42. And the elders of Midian said unto Moab, we have heard that at the time when Sihon, king of the Amorites, fought against you, when we prevailed over you and took your land, he had sent to Beor the son of Janis, and to Baalim, to his sons from Mesopotamia. And they came to curse you. Therefore did the hand of Sihon prevail over you, and he took your land.
So look at that.
He took your land.
Yeah, so this is actually the Moabites and the Midianites talking, saying, when we went to war against Sihon, an Amorite, Balaam was with them and accused and cursed us. Look at that. You got cursed by this guy. Now you say, let's flip the script. You work for us. It's once again, it shows you how they treat these people. They can do you dirty all the day long, and you'll still be like, we don't want to kill him. We want to take his power for ourselves. Let's read on.
43. Now therefore, send you also to Balaam his sons, for he still remains in his land, and give him his hire, that he may come
so
and curse.
So now we see the Midianites hiring Balaam, giving him everything, the rewards of his divination. Now we see this lining up with the biblical timeline. What you see in Numbers 22 all the way out to 25.
Yeah.
Now you see the Moabites and the Midianites coming together getting Balaam after he done jumped ship 5 times. We just saw him with the Amorites. When the children of Israel toppled and basically left Egypt, he was like, what I got to do here?
Nothing.
I'm going to the Amorites. And he went to this like the 5th nation that he left and went to. Just leaving every other nation high and dry, sucking them of all their nutrients like a parasite.
Yeah.
Suck out everything from you, and then go to the next host when you can't give them any more nutrients. You see how the Israelites move. They weren't like that. They did not move like that. The true Israelites, they were there. Look at Jacob. Jacob got scammed by Laban and still said, fine, you want another 7 years? I'll give you another 7 years. Committed. But now these other people, like I said, the shoe fits, wear it. You in a nation, you suck it dry, you destroy it, then you jump ship and go to this nation.
With all their wealth.
Right. With their wealth, and do it all over again. Who does that fit? Let's read on.
And gave him his hire, that he may come and curse all the people of whom you are afraid. So
which was Israel this time. Let's read on.
So the elders of Moab heard this thing, and it pleased them to send Balaam the son of Beor. So Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent messengers to Balaam, saying, behold, there is a people come out of Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Now therefore, come and curse this people for me, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I should prevail to fight against them and drive them out. For I have heard that he whom thou blessed is blessed, and he whom thou cursed is cursed.
All right, so now we see this lining up with the biblical time frame, but we got the history of Balaam going from Esau to Hittim to Cush to the Amorites, and now he's here with the Moabites.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, just going all over the place. And why is it important? Because we're going to see this play out again in history. We can see it today. And we can see it with these 10 horns. Going to anywhere that had power. Now, let's get to it. We're talking about this horn, the second horn, Portugal. Let's go look at the Portuguese slave trade. Remember, we already showed that they had converts who converted. We're going to get back to that. But let's just look at the beginning of their slave trade. And go ahead, Khan Gabar. You can read that article from Oxford Academy, and if you will get the next one, maybe Cam.
So between 1441 and 1444, Portuguese navigator exploring the west coast of Africa captured the first contingents of Africans on the Mauritanian coast, and subsequently shipped them to Portugal.
Interesting that they went to Mauritania first. But you see, the Ottomans started enslaving them around 1200. And now you see the Portuguese coming. They're the first European power, or let me not say European, first Western European power to come and actually start enslaving the saints, enslaving the children of Israel, or doing what the dragon had told the beast to do, make war with Zion and the offspring of her children. And so they went and conquered them, started in Mauritania in 1441, all the way through 1444. Is really when that transatlantic slave trade started to happen. But they didn't take them across the continent. They took them, well, they did, but they took them across the Strait of Gibraltar. They took them out from Africa to Portugal first. Let's read on.
Most of them were Muslim Berbers, but they were also individuals among them from sub-Saharan Africa who had been brought to the Barbary coast by way of the caravan routes. These first slaves raiding expeditions fueled a plan to divert one of the trans-Saharan routes to the coast, which the Portuguese successfully accomplished when trade relations with the Berbers became regular.
So you see that they actually started trading with these Muslims. Why didn't they just keep enslaving them? Because they were like, that wasn't what Balaam told me to do. Balaam told me to go and get these quote-unquote sub-Saharan Africans. Let's read on.
They built and fortified outposts on the Bay of Arguin in Mauritania, from where several thousand slaves were sent to Europe between 1448 and the early 16th century.
All right, so unlike a lot of other slave trades where they were walking or being brought on caravan, there is no land route between Africa, Mauritania, and Europe. You got to put them on ships. So they're already exporting thousands of slaves to Europe on ships in the early 1400s. It's crazy, that 12 tribe chart. Ain't got nothing to do with Portugal. Nothing. But they're bringing slaves back to the homeland, to Portugal. Let's read on.
In the meantime, the Portuguese had continued to advance down the coast of Africa and had established commercial relations with the local authorities and merchants in sub-Saharan Africa, who were inclined to sell captives, as was the case of the Wolof people in the Senegambia region.
So you see now that they weren't just going in and going to war. They said, hey, you got slaves for me to buy? And these Hamites, like these Wolofs in Senegal and Gambia, were like, yeah, we got some slaves. We got some Hebrews that we captured who are refugees in our land. We can sell them to you. We're not going to sell our fellow Hamite brothers, but these are Shemites. We'll sell them to you. And so the Portuguese were trading with them, buying these slaves and bringing them over to Portugal at first. And now what started to occur?
The Portuguese monarchy secured monopoly over the slave trade.
So this first horn was egregious because the Ottomans, they kind of thrusted themselves into the slave trade on the East Coast. But the Portuguese came and created their own slave trade on the West Coast. And they had a monopoly.
Yeah, they secured it.
Yeah, they secured it. They were the only ones capturing slaves or bartering and trading for slaves. And they were the ones who all the other nations had to come and buy them from for a time. Not forever, for a time. You see how they're getting their hour with the beast.
That's right.
They're getting their power. They're the ones like, you come to me.
Not much, but they got
it. Yeah, they got something. Just like you see, like the Messiah talks about, you don't come to the Father except by me. The Portuguese had their own little thing. Yeah. You don't get no slaves except to come through me. Let's read on.
So the Portuguese monarchy secured monopoly over the slaves along the African coast with the promulgation of the papal bulls.
Now, here's another key point. We haven't forgotten about these converts, but remember, they're Catholic. So now the Pope had these things they call it the bulls. We're going to get into that. Let's read that. Let's read on.
1452 to 1456, they gave the Portuguese crown authority to raid and trade exclusively.
So now the Pope himself issued a decree saying, y'all continue to do what you're doing. Our God, the dragon, is well pleased. You, Portugal, are now. You have the ability to do it exclusively. Only you can go now into Africa and start trading and getting these slaves.
Only you.
Only you. You my chosen. You're my elect. Let's read on.
Unlike the other European powers that did not enjoy the same privilege.
Even the next horn, Spain, didn't have the same privileges as Portugal to go and get some slaves. They had to go through Portugal and say, can you sell me some slaves? And they happily obliged. Let's read on.
One of the king, H.O.W. II of Portugal, 1481 to 1495, projects was to establish several trading posts along the African coast, following the example of the fort of Arguin, intended for the trade of slaves. However, this project proved unsuccessful, whereupon the archipelagos of Cabos, Verde, and Sao Tome.
So they had Cape Verde and Sao Tome became these places where they set up their initial outpost of slave trading. Read on.
And Principe assumed a prominent role as entry pot in the trade between Africa and Europe.
So it became like a hub, like Atlanta. Anybody knows about Atlanta as a hub? It used to be a railway hub. Now it's an international airport hub. Flights come in, not to necessarily stay, but for you to transfer and go to somewhere else. That's what these islands became for the Portuguese. Hubs where they would take the initial trading or slaves they traded, bring them there and start putting them, loading up as cargo to other ships. They just treat them like cargo. Straight cargo. Let's read on.
When the Spanish king authorized a direct connection between the markets of Africa and Central America from 1518 onward, the Cabo Verde and Sao Tome Islands became the main suppliers of captive labor for the New World throughout most of the 16th century.
So you see that the Portuguese had control of these places. Obviously, as they started losing their time, the hourglass is going short for the Portuguese, you see that it started changing hands. But it was still this trading hub for slaves. It was the point where all these ships, all these European powers would come, buy their slaves, and then go to their colonies in the Americas or wherever else they were taking them. And this was done by the hands of the Portuguese starting in the 1440s. It's crazy how this class doesn't need to be about just debunking false doctrines, but you got people talking about the 400-year prophecy. 1619 to 2019.
Yeah.
That's what it was, right?
Yeah.
The Portuguese was grabbing Spain in the 1440s.
What you gonna do with that?
Yeah. We well past 400 years at that point.
Yeah, con.
400 years at that point would have been the 1800s. We way past that, and we way past, what was it they were looking for, 2019? We way past that. We in so-called 2026. Why are you basing your prophecy off Gregorian dates anyway?
Yeah.
1619, what is that to Abba Yahweh? Ain't nothing. Let's focus on this, how they got their hour with the beast. And so we see that they started trading slaves. And now let's go to this website, humanrights.ca, a Canadian website. Doctrine of Discovery, where we talk about these papal bulls. What exactly were these papal bulls that they were talking about? Go ahead and read that, AP Candidate Cam.
The doctrine of discovery. The doctrine of discovery is a legal and religious concept that has been used for centuries to justify Christian colonial conquest. It advanced the idea that European peoples, culture, and religion were superior to all others.
Once again, when you had these people forced to convert in Spain and in Portugal, you think that they were letting Moors convert? Black Moors convert? I think not. The Pope had decreed our European culture, aka our Roman Catholic culture, and our religion is superior to all others. And they were true technically. What they really were saying, if you translate it, is we are the beast. And the dragon is giving us power.
Yeah.
So this is our time to reign. If you translate it like that, it's true. Let's read on about this doctrine of discovery.
The doctrine of discovery was set out in a series of declarations by popes in the 15th century.
So these declarations were given by not just one pope, but several popes. But there's one that's going to come very important in this class, Abba willing.
These declarations, known as papal bulls, was provided religious authority for Christian emperors to invade and subjugate non-Christian lands, peoples, and sovereign nations, impose Christianity on these populations, and claim their resources.
So this was an edict from the Pope himself, and the Pope is supposed to be the vicar of Christ. He's supposed to be the one that is speaking for their religious authority. If you heard it from the Pope, it was supposed to be like you heard it from Jesus.
Yeah.
And they did hear it from their God. The dragon was giving them power and said, you can now subjugate anybody who's not a European Christian. You're going to see how else, Abba willing, we have time, hopefully we can get through this class, but you're going to see who else some of these things apply to as well. Let's read on.
These papal bulls were written at the time when European empires were embarking on wide-scale colonial expansion.
How convenient. Let's read on. Read that subtext now. The image is not that important. It's just looks like an old document on some old parchment paper. But read the subtext on that.
This 1455 version of the papal bull, Romanus Pontifex,
Romanus Pontifex, meaning Pope of Rome, telling them, remember, 1455, that's the time of Portuguese expansion. Read on.
Was issued by Pope Nicholas, Vicar of the Son of God, among other colonized powers. It grants Portugal's king, Alfonso V, the right to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans.
So the Pope, once again, directly gave Portugal power. Just like the dragon. I'm giving you power and authority as the beast to now go invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all these quote, quote, pagans. Anybody essentially who's not a Christian. Anybody who's not a Roman Catholic. You can go and invade, capture, subjugate, and make them your slave. Now, obviously, there was a huge and major skew toward people in Africa. They were the main ones they went to and colonized and used this edict against. Clearly showing you John's prophecy, which was already perfectly lining up, showing you who this is related to. If this is one of the 10 horns and their power and the strength was given to them to war against Zion and our offspring, who are they using this edict against? Against you, against us, against those who were in Africa. Remember, they weren't subjugating the Wolof people or the Berbers. They were subjugating sub-Saharan Africans. But they were trading with others. Why? Because prophecy fits to us and not them. Let's now drop that. Let's get some quick history on Sao Tome and Principe. Kahan Gabar, if you grab that from Encyclopedia Britannica.
Sao Tome and Principe were uninhabited when they were discovered about 1470 by Portugal navigators. In the late 15th century, the Portuguese sent out settlers, including many convicts and Jewish children who had been separated from their parents and expelled from Portugal.
So they sent out, they said convicts, Jewish children, to go and settle this island. And what did they bring with them? What did they tell them to do on this island that they settled?
And brought enslaved Africans to the islands to grow sugar.
To grow sugar. Brought over these Africans and start to grow sugar. Let's read on.
During the 16th century, Sao Tome was for a brief time the world's largest producer of sugar.
So for a time, during the 1500s, Sao Tome was the largest producer of sugar. But then the Portuguese found something better. What did they find?
But the rise of Brazilian competition.
They found Brazil. And they said, yo, Sao Tome's a little island.
This is where the money's at over here.
This is a continent. We need some slaves. We need some real deal slaves. Let's read on.
With the rise of the Brazilian competition and the poor quality of Sao Tome, badly dried product virtually destroyed this industry. The economic decline was accentuated by social instability as enslaved people escaped bondage and fled to the mountains and raided the plantations.
So Sao Tome is known for a slave rebellion. Unfortunately, time won't allow us to go through it. It'd be nice if we could, but we got a lot of other things to cover as well. Let's read on.
Amador, the self-proclaimed king of the enslaved, who nearly overran the whole island of Sao Tome in 1595, is now regarded by many as a national hero.
All right. For time's sake, let's drop that. And now let's go. Once again, this is pretty common knowledge, so we're going to take it from Wikipedia because they compile everything together pretty well. We're going to go to this article on slavery in Brazil. Now, there are some lesser-known facts about Brazil. You can see that even our fellow Israelites didn't really consider the history of Brazil.
Yeah, exactly. At all.
Yeah, let's look at why. Slavery in Brazil. You got that, AP candidate Cam?
During the Atlantic slave trade era, Brazil imported more enslaved Africans than any other country in the world.
Brazil received more slaves than any single country. Any other country. We always think of America as, you know, the epitome of slavery. But Brazil received more slaves than any other colony because they found a lot of resources there.
Wait, why they ain't Judah?
Right. Exactly.
It should be Judah. You know?
How you have a 12 tribes chart and Brazil ain't even on the chart? They say Mexico. They give Mexico a whole tribe. They give
Uruguay.
Yeah, they say Benjamin's all of the Caribbean. They say, Uruguay. They talk about that. What's the other one? It's like Argentina. They got on the chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, Chile.
Yeah, they got all these countries,
What
but
happened to
Brazil got the most slaves.
What happened?
I would at least, if I was making up a 12 tribe chart, like the 12 tribe chart was made up, I probably would have known some history, would have said, man, that must be Reuben at least, because Moses said, he's going to multiply Reuben. Yeah, they multiplied him. At least, but they got some ranges, like something like, something like Uruguay to Brazil or something like that is this tribe. You just completely forsake Brazil. That shows you that there's a such thing as Eurocentric. You have become Eurocentric. You become American-centric. You can only understand things from your narrow American perspective. You're used to people coming from Jamaica, so you give them a whole tribe. You're used to people coming from Haiti or the Dominican Republic, so you give them his own tribe. But Brazil, you never met a Brazilian. And you completely forget about them like they didn't matter.
Where they tribe?
Yeah.
Their whole tribe.
Right. They got more slaves. How many slaves did they get? Let's read that.
Out of the 12 million Africans who were forcibly brought to the Western
So
Hemisphere,
they estimate 12 million. I heard estimates of much higher, but let's look at the ratio. Out of 12 million brought to the Western Hemisphere, that means North America, Central America, South America.
approximately 5.5 million were brought to Brazil.
Nearly 50%.
Wow. Just
Nearly
Brazil
50%
alone.
to Brazil alone. And it makes sense because Portugal was the first to start the slave trade.
It is, yeah.
And they were the ones who were controlling where slaves went to for a time. And so, and we won't be able to get to it, but Brazil was actually the very last country to end slavery, to abolish slavery. America, we already know 1865 or 1863, depending on how you look at it, or Juneteenth. But then you had Cuba was one of the last ones. Brazil didn't free slaves until I think 1888. Almost 1900.
Yeah, right.
Brazil still had legal slavery. And like you said, Brazil ain't not on the 12 tribe chart. That shows you that thing is trash. That thing is straight trash. And I get it. We want to have a connection to our culture. I understand. But let's not make up stuff. We don't have to make stuff up. Our history is rich. And as we covered last week, you're completely negating all the Israelites that went east.
Yeah.
We just show you how these white Jews went to India and found black Jews.
Yeah.
Who were they? They were Israelites. They were of the 10 tribes that got scattered. And yet we're going to forsake them or forget them and completely forget Brazil. You're going to do all of the Western Hemisphere for the 12 tribe chart and not put Brazil on there? What a grave mistake. You would have given yourself so much more credence. You call Brazil the Reubenites or something. You gave Mexico Issachar. All the Europeans in Mexico. The president of Mexico is named Shinebound.
Yeah.
She's a Balaamite. She Issachar too? President Shinebound, she Issachar? Come on. Yeah, not at all.
She converted.
Yeah.
To Issacharian.
Yeah. That's why she's a Jew, because she converted to leave the trash in the dumpster. Let's come and get this true understanding. These 10 horns oppressed us, and the second one, the first of the Western Europeans, was Portugal, exporting nearly half of all the slaves to the single colony of Brazil. Let's read on.
The mass enslavement of Africans played a pivotal role in the country's economy and was responsible for the production of vast amounts of wealth.
So you see that these slaves created vast amounts of wealth, not for Brazil, but for Portugal.
Yeah.
Or the colonial rulers of Brazil. Let's read on.
The inhumane treatment and forced labors of enslaved Africans remains a significant part of Brazil's history in its ongoing struggle with systematic racism. Until the early 1850s, most enslaved African people who arrived on Brazilian shores were forced to embark at West Central African ports, especially in Luanda, present-day Angola. Slave labor was the driving force behind the growth of the sugar economy in Brazil, and sugar was the primary export of the colony from 1600 to 1650s. Gold and diamond deposits were discovered in Brazil in 1690s, which sparked an increase in the importation of enslaved African people to power this newly profitable mining.
So you see how they were extracting all the resources out of here and kept bringing in slaves. The more they found stuff, the more they're like, we need more slaves. So at first, they had the sugar overtake Sao Tome, and they said, send all slaves to Brazil. Then they found gold and diamonds. They said, man, we need an influx. Bring me some slaves to mine my gold and my diamonds. Let's read on.
Demand for enslaved Africans did not wane after the decline of the mining industry in the second half of the 18th century.
So even after they extracted all the goods from the ground of Brazil, they said, we still need slaves. For what? Read on.
Cattle ranching and foodstuff production proliferated after the population growth, both of which relied heavily on the slave labor. 1.7 million slaves were imported to Brazil from Africa from 1700 to 1800.
Just in 100 years. Millions.
Yeah, look at that.
1.7, almost 2 million brought over. Just slaves to Brazil. What else?
And the rise of coffee in the 1830s further expanded the Atlantic slave trade.
So every time a new industry came, they said, we need slaves. They didn't say, let's work for a fair wage. And nope, we need slaves. Read on.
Brazil was the last country in the Americas to abolish slavery on 13th May, 1888.
1888.
Yeah.
You had, I think, some of these other countries, you had them abolishing slavery before the Civil War. America was kind of like right there in the middle. 1888 was when the use of slaves was abolished in Brazil. That's how much they depended on. They held out to the very, very end. Let's go now. Let's jump now to this article. Same source, or it's the. Actually, you keep reading. It's the same section. It's another section of the same article, Slavery in Medieval Portugal. And then we're going to go back to the article we're reading from the beginning. Kahanga Barrio. The Roads of the Jewish Portuguese Diaspora. Jewish Tours Paris. Actually, for time's sake, let's drop that. I think we got the point. Let's go straight to that article, The Roads of the Jewish Portuguese Diaspora. Jewish Tours Paris.
Family, social, financial, and commercial network of the New Christians.
So let's harken back to this article, right? We were talking about how that the Jews, the people in Spain, they were forced to either leave or convert. And remember, the converts were not the Moors. They didn't have a choice. They had to leave. Portuguese did the same thing. The ones that converted were these, as this article already told you, the white Jews.
The New Christians.
The New Christians are these converts, these white Jews. They were not going to let these Moors be Christian in their own land. Because now, if they're Christian, you have to treat them the same. So, as we already saw by the edicts of the Pope, you'd have to treat them the same. They didn't want that. They treated them like lesser, like less than. So, you have these new Christians that you're actually going to see, they began to help the Portuguese. Let's read on.
The ferocious religious persecution, along with the exclusion and discrimination of new Christians, even though that with the years became sincere Catholics.
So some were sincere, but how do you gauge that? How do you gauge who is a sincere Catholic? Let's read on.
Increased their exodus from the second half of the 16th century, both to find ways to practice their Judaism and in search for better life conditions.
So did they really change?
Not.
They said, yeah, I'm a Catholic. You come knock on the door. Hey, it's an Inquisition. Are there any juice boxes in the house? Say, no, I'm Catholic. All the while searching for where they could go practice what they practice. What were they practicing? They were like Balaam. Yeah, exactly. Let's read on. Let's see what else they were doing.
As many of the new Christians were merchants, they would rather quickly set sail on the new maritime routes, which were at the height of their expansion, and become involved in all sectors of emerging transatlantic trade.
So these new converts were merchant people. They said, you know what? Instead of staying here and possibly getting uncovered for who I am, I'm going to just get involved in all this exploration that's going on, this trading. I'm going to trade some spices from India and, all the way over to the Americas. What else am I going to trade?
Sugar, tobacco, textile, wine, precious stones, silver.
All the good stuff. What else?
As well as in slave trade.
In the slave trade. These are converts who got taught by the Moors, now enslaving them. These are people who are looking for places to practice their Judaism. And along with that, they said, hey, it's fair game, right? It's about me. It's about me getting my life back together, because there's an Inquisition in Portugal. If they find out I'm a Balaamite, they might not like that. And so they actually start to participate in the transatlantic trade of spices, sugar, tobacco, sugar, one of the big ones in Brazil and in São Tomé, as well as slaves. Read on.
Thus, both victims and agents of colonial empires.
Look at that. Always crying victim. Who's always crying victim? Right. Always crying victim, and yet you are the oppressor. Always screaming, look at what they did. I need to bomb the hell out of them.
That's annoying, though.
Yeah, right.
Man.
The first Karens. Look at what they did. It's so atrocious. Let me kill everybody. Because they stabbed me and hurt my toe. And so these people that were claiming to be victims now are agents of colonial oppression. Read on.
As noted, the British historian Jonathan Israel, they will have a crucial role in the first world economy and
right,
European expansion.
Go to the next part of this article. So now we see that these converts weren't really converts. They converted from wherever they were before by the Moors and started practicing what they called Judaism. Now in the Inquisition, they converted now to Catholicism. And these are what the same article called the white Jews. White juice boxes made from white grapes. The other ones were made from red grapes. This is the white grape juice. And so now they were then forced to convert to Catholicism, but not all of them really were sincere. Not all of them really were Catholics. Let's read on.
We start with Antwerp.
Yep.
Antwerp, Belgium, became the first hub of maritime trade in the 16th century. The city welcomed foreign merchants and promoted a certain religious tolerance. Among them, we found our Portuguese new Christians.
So they had religious tolerance there. They said, I can let the veil off. I can be who I am. Read on.
Who in the 1511 were given a charter granting them rights and privileges. Some of them were crypto Jews.
Crypto juice boxes on the low, cryptically. doing what they do. Read on.
Others already sincerely Catholics.
Okay.
They
They
all
were
formed.
sincere in your face.
Yeah.
Read on.
They all formed a corporation of merchants known under the name of the Portuguese nation.
They were still, even outside of Portugal, repping Portugal. I'm a trader for Portugal, they said. Jump down now to the next part of this article.
In 1503, the Portuguese crown signed a contract with Fernando de Noronha, a new Christian.
The Portuguese crown had a literal agreement, a contract with a convert. To do what?
To exploit Brazil wood.
To exploit Brazil. Where do you get Brazil wood from? It ain't a trick question. From Brazil. So this guy, who was a convert, but not really a convert, was made governor over Brazil, or over a section of Brazil, and was trading with the Portuguese. Read on.
Noronha gave the king a share of his profits to reward him for his success. The king gave him the island of Pernambuco, which would henceforth bear his name.
So you had a guy having a monopoly over the Brazil wood in Brazil. You got to be in Brazil to be over that. And he shared his profits with the king. You see, the same thing happened with Balaam. These converts ingratiating themselves in with the king. Said, you give me something, I'll give you something. Read on.
Among the Portuguese, in search of the wealth provided by this new commerce, were many new Christians who saw it as an opportunity to escape the Inquisition established in 1536 and initiate a new life. The northeastern coastal region, Nordeste, mainly in Pernambuco and Bahia, was the area which had a kind of soil that was very favorable for planting sugarcane. It was to there that the new Christians brought their now known know-how of sugar plantations from Madeira to Sao Tome.
So now they learn from San Tome, like we already covered, corroborated by Encyclopedia Britannica, the Jews boxes, the white grape ones, went to Sao Tome and learned how to manage sugar. And when that switched over to Brazil, they were like, hey, we already were doing this in Sao Tome. We can do this in Brazil. Read on.
Very quickly, they became a prominent force in the sugar plantation production as well as the sugar and slave trade.
So these converts, these new Christians, became prominent in sugar plantation and the slave trade. And so we see that they don't just get a pass. They're not just innocent. They were there the whole time oppressing the children of Israel. We already talked about where the Turks came from Khazaria, and how the Turks said, welcome, all of you who don't want to be in Portugal and Spain. You can freely practice your Balaamism here. And then you had the same going over in Portugal. They just did it undercover. I'm a Catholic.
I'm a Christian.
Yeah, I'm a Christian. All the while they're back in their home doing,
Yeah, exactly. Gyrating.
Yeah. Got a wailing wall in their bedroom. Doing all types of weird stuff in their bedroom, but they're in public. I'm a Catholic. Let's go to Mass. Let me do my rosaries.
Liars.
But they were involved in the slave trade and in the colonization of Brazil. Let's read on.
Prospering and fairly protected by the colonial government.
Unbeknownst to the Portuguese. They were prospering and protected by themselves, by the Portuguese. Read on.
Far from the metropolis, the new Christians could thus practice their crypto Judaism in rather liberty.
So being away from Lisbon, Portugal, away from the crown, they could more safely practice what they were practicing before they converted over in Brazil. And just like Balaam, always following the children of Israel, always going where there's power, they started to oppress the children of Israel. They started to fight in war against Zion and her offspring, her seed. Let's read on.
Yet, from the end of the 16th century, the Portuguese Inquisition expanded its scope to Brazil without establishing a tribunal in this far-off land.
All right, so we can end it there. So they did bring an Inquisition there, but then all you got to do is, oh, yeah, I'm Catholic. What you talking about? I wasn't at no Wailing Wall. I was doing rosaries.
Yeah.
And so I would like to go and talk more about Portugal. I almost want to do one class on Portugal, one class on the next horn, but we got to combine the two because we only have 7 weeks in this Feast of Weeks. Let's move over to the next horn, Spain. Now, Spain came a little later to the slave trade. Portugal already went out and started, we already saw in the 1440s going to Mauritania, setting up forts and getting slaves, trading with the Berbers and getting slaves. Spain came a little later. When did it start? Let's get that article from history.com about Columbus.
From the Spanish ports of Palos, Italian explorer Christopher Columbus set sail in command of 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Nina.
Once again, this is why we need TOLA, the Tree of Life Academy. Everybody's taught about this in school. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. How beautiful. Look at the pilgrims and Columbus, and it's beautiful. It was an abomination. When Columbus came back, well, I was going to tell you. Let's look at what happened.
On a journey to find a western sea route to China, India, and the fabled gold and spice islands of Asia.
I bet Hasatan was like, nope, you're not going east. I'm going to have all the winds blowing west. Take your behind over to Cuba. Let's read on.
On October 12, the expedition sighted land, probably Watling Island in the Bahamas, and went ashore the same day, claiming it for Spain. Later that month, Columbus sighted Cuba, which he thought was mainland China, and in December, the expedition landed on Hispaniola, which Columbus thought might be Japan. He established a small colony there with 39 of his men. The explorer returned to Spain with gold, spices, and Indian captives in March 1493.
So he thought, once again, I got Indians. Obviously, where the term calling them Indians comes from. He thought he was in India.
He went the wrong way.
He went the wrong way, but Satan was blowing those winds. Say, I got a plan. Forget India. I already got slaves over there. I need you to go westward. I need you to go to the Americas. Let's read on.
And he was received with the highest honors by the Spanish court. He was the first European to explore the Americas since the Vikings set up colonies in Greenland and Newfoundland in the 10th century. During his lifetime, Columbus led a total of 4 expeditions to the Americas, discovering various Caribbean islands, the Gulf of Mexico, the South and Central American mainland, but never accomplished his original goal, a Western Ocean route to the great cities of Asia. Columbus died in Spain in 1506 without realizing the scope of what he did achieve. He had discovered for Europe the so-called New World, whose riches over the next century would help make Spain the wealthiest and most powerful nation on earth.
So what he did was he went and found this place, and it lit a fire under Spain. He came back with some Native Americans with their gold jewelry on, and they were like, whoa, there's a whole new place for us to colonize? Like Portugal's already doing? We can't let Portugal beat us out. we need to go and get some riches. This is the time. Now, we're going to read this article. It's kind of long, but it's got some good information that we're going to need. Kahan Gabar, you'll grab that. This is called this article is from the History Reader, Treaty of Tordesillas. Some of y'all may know what that is. Let's go ahead and read about this treaty in 1494. Remember, Columbus went in 1492, sailed the ocean blue. So now in 1494, a treaty is made between who? Let's read on from the top.
The bull entered Soteria and several other bulls from the same era from the bases.
So remember, these bulls are not cattle. It's talking about these edicts given by the Pope, by the Catholic Church. Let's read on.
From the basis of 1494 Treaty of Tordesillas between Spain and Portugal.
So now Spain wants to get in on what Portugal has already been doing for 50 years, since 1444. Let's read on.
The treaty was, among other things, a catalyst in the development of the modern concept of the freedom of the seas, the unhindered use of the world's waterway for trade and travel.
Well, they said this treaty actually set the foundation for modern day times. What are they talking about? Let's read on.
Other legal concepts that inform the modern international law of the seas also stemmed indirectly from the treaties of the Tordesillas.
So we see that, well, actually, read on. I was going to tell you.
The right of the innocent passage, the definition of territorial waters, international waters, a nation's exclusive economic zone, and the definition of the continental shelf. United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas, which came in force as a Building International Convention on November 16, 1994, owes its origin to the conflict and debates of the centuries following the treaties of Tordesillas.
All right, so now we see that this Treaty of Tordesillas actually laid the foundation for what would come for centuries later, even influencing what the UN does. How they set up, this is your economic zone, this is international waters, these are your country's waters. This is what they set up, even going back to 1494. We have to see what this treaty actually did. But let's read on.
Although not every signatory country has ratified the convention, only 20 of the world's countries have refused to recognize or sign it. And it is the closest and international communities will likely ever come to the consensus on governing an enormous part of the natural world that is common to nearly all. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas is the culmination of a legal, philosophical process that begins in the late 15th century when Portuguese mariners discovered the sea route to India and the Spice Islands by sailing to Africa. And Columbus first crossed the Atlantic Ocean.
So we see that the United Nations actually took this treaty and used it as a framework for how they would govern even today. So now we see that it was because Portugal was over here having an economic zone over in India. Columbus sailed for Spain and found some location that the Portuguese didn't find. So now there's arising a conflict back in the 1400s, the late 1400s. Now let's read and see what the Treaty of Tordesillas actually did.
When Columbus returned to Spain in 1493 after the 7-month voyage, Spanish society was transfixed by his tales of primitive people inhabiting islands far to the west. Spaniards were particularly interested in the golden ornaments and jewelry worn by the kidnapped Indians of Cuba and Hispaniola. Gold meant wealth and power.
This is what Spain wanted. I want my hour with the beast. And so
Yeah.
Columbus came back and showed the kings and showed the Spanish, they're Native Americans, the Indians, and they were all in gold and glitz. And they were like, yo, there's riches and wealth in a land undiscovered.
It's time.
It's our time. And so Portugal had their little season, and they're still going to continue on until Spain is going to start overcoming them a little bit. But let's read on to understand this treaty and how it actually happened.
There was, however, a complication. Columbus's successful return infuriated King João II of Portugal.
Once again, we already read his name. He was one of the ones trading slaves
Yeah.
and sending them to Sao Tome. He was the one who wanted to set up forts in Africa. It didn't work. So he set up Sao Tome and Cape Verde. Let's read on.
Who claimed that a series of papal decreed clearly intended that any new trade routes to heathen lands belonged to him alone.
He said that, remember,
I got exclusive rights.
yeah, you gave me the exclusive package on slavery. What you doing letting the Spanish? You can't do that. You can't go and start colonizing. That belongs to me. Let's read on. What happened?
The king soon began outfitting a fleet to cross the ocean and claim the Indies for Portugal.
So he was actually about to get some travelers ready and say, no, we're going to Cuba or Hispaniola, and we're going to take it over. Read on.
With war imminent, the Spanish monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella sent an official envoy to the papal courts in Rome to argue their case.
So they said, let's take this up with the dragon.
Yeah.
All right. I know you a horn, but I want to be a horn. I know the prophecies of the 10 horns. I got some converts over here telling me that I'm the next horn. Let's go to the dragon and see if, we can work something out. Let's read on.
Pope Alexander VI, also head of the notorious Borgia clan, issued the first
Borgia clan. Read on.
Satira, which proclaimed by the authority of the Almighty
What
Power.
Almighty God? Which one? Read on.
That Ferdinand and Isabella and their heirs in perpetuity were to have the exclusive rights to travel in, trade with the colonized Columbus new founded lands.
All right, so now they said, no, Spain is indeed one of the horns. And so you cannot take away prophecy that's already been given. They are going to be able to go travel, trade, and colonize these places that Columbus found. Read on.
The bull forbade all persons, no matter what rank, estate, degree, ordered, or condition to dare, without your special permission, to go for and sake of trade or any other reason whatsoever, to this said islands and countries after they had been discovered and found by our envoys or persons sent out for that purpose. With the stroke of a pen, the Pope created an imaginary line dividing the world on the north-south axis in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
So now you see what the Treaty of Tordesillas did. They went and drew a line and said, we're going to divide this place. And at that point, remember, they only knew about a few places. They knew about Brazil, and they didn't know how big Brazil was. They knew about Sao Tome. They knew about Africa, of course, in the slave trade. And they knew about these new places that Columbus supposedly found. Let's read on.
All territory east of the line of demarcation was to be Portuguese. And all the
So
territory.
everything, they drew a line down the Americas. So everything on this east side, everything belongs to Portugal. Portugal, this horn is going to reign over here. This toe is going to reign here. And that included going all the way out to Africa. Read on.
And all the territories to the west was to be the sole domain of Spain.
So everything west of that line was given over to Spain. Read on.
The punishment for violating the Pope's proclamation was excommunication.
I'm going to cut you off from getting Balaam's sorcery and magic. I'm going to cut you off from the beast if you don't adhere to this treaty of Tordesillas. Let's read on.
Spain and Portugal affirmed the Papal's decree in the Inter Caetera in the treaty signed in the Spanish town of Tortosa in June of 1494. But they moved the line of demarcation between the Spanish and the Portuguese zones of influence several hundred miles far west. This placed an as yet undiscovered Brazil in the Portuguese half of the world, as well as protected Portugal's African trade route from the European competition. The world was now officially divided. Although it was initially believed that Columbus had discovered the eastern extremity of Asia, it soon became apparent that the world was much larger than supposed, and the Pope had given to Spain and Portugal far more territory than anyone could imagine.
So with the stroke of the pen, the Pope said, Spain, this is what you get. Portugal, this is what you get. They agreed on a specific place and moved it further west. And so that's why Portugal never expanded. They only got Brazil, really, in South America. But Spain got just about everything else. Just about everything else in Central and South America. Yeah, they got just about everything. They got some, Caribbean islands as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so all this was decreed by the Catholic Church, by the Roman pontiff, they called him. The Roman Catholic Church said, this is how you two horns, you two toes, are going to abide. And so Portugal also still kept their slave trade in Africa. They kept all their forts. All that was Portugal. Spain couldn't go to Africa and start getting slaves. They had to actually go to Portugal still, who had a monopoly still on the slave trade. Now remember, this applies to Spain and Portugal particularly. Let's read on.
The official reason for the Inter Caetera was to prevent war between the two most powerful Christian nations of the era and to reward them for their crusading work. The Treaty of 1494, though initially successful in reserving the peace, eventually backfired and had far-reaching implications beyond anything imagined by Alexander VI. It was to have a profound influence on world history, steering European nations on the collision course to an insidiously emerging as the central grievance that stimulated nearly 2 centuries of espionage, piracy, smuggling, and warfare.
So you see, just like what Daniel saw about the toes, how they were mingled, they were unified in their purpose of oppression and colonization, but they weren't mingled, they weren't one. They were still all these different people, and it would set the tone. This declaration would set the tone for all types of warfare still between these European nations. Everybody trying not to decimate the other, but to be on top.
Yeah, battling for position.
Right. I want to be the beast favorite. I want to be the dragon's favorite. Let's read on.
By the mid-16th century, the line of demarcation had propelled Spain and Portugal to global superpower status. Prior to the Reformation,
once again, we see they became global superpowers. The way we think of America today, the way we think of Russia or China, That was Portugal and Spain, the two superpowers of the day, increasing in immense wealth and dominion over basically everything that was going on in the world. Read on.
Prior to the Reformation, few in Europe dared to fully and openly challenge the authority of the Roman Catholic Church. As a result, Portugal quickly grew rich from the monopoly on the eastern trade route to India and the Spice Islands, or spiceries.
So, once again, the Pope, the Roman Catholic Church, had that seat of dominion. They thought that they were speaking for the dragon that they were serving. And so when the Pope said Portugal has monopoly over the slave trade, everybody took it as it is what it is. So Portugal was propelled ahead because of that. Spain as well. Read on.
Spain, unopposed in the Americas, was given free rein to conquer the rich culture of the Aztecs, Mayan, and Inca's empire, to begin shipping vast cargoes of gold and silver bullions back across the Atlantic.
All right. So let's drop that now. If Cam, you'll get this next article, once again from Wikipedia, Slavery in Spain. And so we see now how this line demarked these different territories, that Portugal would have the slave trade and eventually get Brazil. The rest of the Americas that were known at the time, South America and Central America, Spain had free reign. And in there, they would encounter native people, Aztecs, Mayans, and Incas, along with some of these other smaller tribes. Let's read on, talk about slavery in Spain. Now, the Mayas, the Incas, there was a lot going on in there, but that's not as important to what we need to cover today. Because, contrary to some people's beliefs, they have nothing to do with Israel. Nothing. Let's read on.
Slavery in Spain began in the 15th century and reached its peak in the 16th century. The history of Spanish enslavement of Africans began with Portuguese captains Antoine Gonçalves and Nuno Christou in 1441. The first large group of African slaves, made up of 235 slaves, came with La Sorante de Fringes 3 years later. In 1462, Portuguese slave traders began to operate in Seville, Spain.
So even before the Pope made these edicts, they were going into Spain and making trades, selling slaves to these Spanish. Read on.
During the 1470s, Spanish merchants began to trade large numbers of slaves. Slaves were auctioned at market, at a cathedral.
Even at a cathedral. You got a cathedral selling slaves. Let's read on.
And subsequently were transported to cities all over imperial Spain. This led to the spread of Moorish, African, and Christian slavery in Spain.
So these same Moors that they kicked out became slaves. Let's read on.
By the 16th century, 7.4% of the population in Seville, Spain, were slaves.
7.4% of your population. That's not insignificant. That's how many slaves were there in Spain, in this one city. Read on.
Many historians have concluded that Renaissance and early modern Spain had highest amount of African slaves in Europe.
So they actually theorized that Spain had more slaves than Portugal, at least in Europe at that time. Of course, we know that they transport more slaves to Brazil, but Spain and Europe had more slaves than Portugal at this time, because they were getting all the slaves from Portugal. They were buying them up. Let's read on.
After dynastic union of Crown of Castile and the Crown of Aragon in 1479 under the Catholic monarchs, and with this formal establishment in 1492, Spain was united and slavery was performed under the same rules in all Spain.
And so in 1492 is when they actually started this expedition with Columbus going out to the west, and Spain was now one united empire. All the tribes, these Spanish tribes, were united and engaged in unison in this slavery. Let's read on about the enslavement of so-called Africans.
In 1442, Pope Eugene IV gave the Portuguese the right to explore sub-Saharan Africa. The Portuguese attempted to protect their findings from the Spanish, who were beginning to explore Africa contemptuously.
So before the Pope gave that edict, the Spanish were trying to get a foothold in Africa too, knowing that I'm a horn, I'm one of the toes, I'm going to have some power. I need to go and get me some slaves. Let's read on.
At that time, Spain was occupied by Muslim power, and the Catholic Church felt threatened. Protecting the church, Pope Nicholas V. 1452 gave the right to enslave anyone who was not practicing the Christian religion, known as diversas.
So now, once again, we see another pope giving another one of those bulls or those edicts, saying you have the right to enslave anybody who is not a Christian or a Catholic. Anybody. Let's read on.
The Spanish government created the Asiento system, which functioned between the years of 1543 and 1834.
Now, they had a few other systems, but this is the one that's more appropriate to us or more relevant to us. Let's read on.
The Asiento allowed other countries to sell people into slavery to the Spanish. A population by the 16th century was mostly composed of individuals of African descent.
So even though they can enslave anybody who wasn't a Christian, they could have gone to the Ottomans and enslaved them. The Ottoman Empire was still going. They could have gone to Eastern Europe and found some who didn't have Catholicism. Yeah, they could have enslaved them, but nope, they were going to Africa. They were going and getting us and saying, these are the ones who we want to enslave. Although it's an edict for anybody not Christian or Catholic, it really was for us to be enslaved. Read on.
Atumi Talsihi states in the Journal of Black Studies, African peoples have an ancient presence in the Iberian Peninsula. In fact, Spanish identity especially has been forged on front lines of African and European interactions.
All right, so now we see the enslavement of Africans starting to start, or so-called Africans, really the Israelites who have been scattered, being traded by Hamite or African tribes to the Portuguese and to the Spain or the Spanish. Now, it's going to go on to a section talking about the enslavement of indigenous Americans. Let's read about them. Because some people will argue, that they are, the 10 tribes that went over. Let's get some understanding on them.
Enslavement of the indigenous Americans. In February 1495, Christopher Columbus took captive over 1,500 Arawaks. About 550 of them were shipped to Spain as slaves, with about 40% dying en route.
All right. So we see, look, Native Americans going on ships. Let's look at it, right? It took 500 of them, about 50%, almost 50% of them died. That's about 200 making it. But let's look at what happened to these indigenous Americans. Did they suffer the same fate that we did? Let's go down. Let's go to another article on Wikipedia, Slavery in Colonial Spanish America.
In 1500, the Catholic monarchs issued a decree that specifically forbade the enslavement of indigenous people.
Look at that.
Look at that. You can enslave all the non-Catholics, but not those indigenous people. Don't enslave them.
They got a new doctrine out now that's saying that the blacks were the indigenous people here.
Yeah.
So that just came out of nowhere too. Madness, man.
And it's crazy. If you think about it, blacks were the first everywhere. They're the ones who went to Europe, but did they stay black? So yeah, you have some black people who were over in America, but those weren't Israelites.
Right.
You start talking about those are us. We were already here. We weren't taking on ships. If you take that away, you have taken away your whole claim to being an Israelite.
Yeah.
None of the curses fit you anymore. Just like they don't fit the juice boxes. Balaam's life does. Balaam's history does. But not Deuteronomy 28, not the actual things that Abba Yahweh said would happen to them. You talk about we were here already, and what benefit is that giving you?
None.
That just makes you feel better. I was already here. That's like when you in in middle school and somebody takes your seat. That's my seat. I was already sitting in this seat. Okay. Ain't nothing. That means nothing. Once again, we were brought over here on slave ships. There is abundant history showing that. So yes, obviously, coming from Noah, he was black. Ham, Shem, Japheth, all black. And as they started to spread, it was black people going out. But they didn't stay that way. They started changing. Their phenotypes, their biology started to change. Same thing with the Americas. You had tribes from these sons of Noah going over there. But some will say it was the 10 tribes that were scattered and then they were brought over, which is another point of madness. When you read that in Ezra, not talk about them going to Azareth, that's America.
Yeah.
It says they have to cross the Euphrates. Where's the Euphrates? Saying he's going to take them from India and from where the Assyrians had spread them and bring them back to the promised land. Ain't talking nothing about them getting on a boat, sailing from India around Africa. Why'd you skip Africa? Just go to South Africa, if that's the case. You skipped Africa and sailed around, skipped Antarctica. Now you went to the Americas. This is our land that we found, that we're going to inhabit and live righteously. Look, the Native Americans, they're wearing fringes. That must be Israel. Well, you know they're smoking tobacco and doing, peace by celebration and worshiping their deities too.
Yeah.
That's Israel?
Yeah.
That's them? You know who came up with that? I wanted to get it in this class, but we had a little, had to go ahead and expedite it. One, Christopher Columbus. He came over and said, remember, he didn't know where he was. He thought he was in Japan. He thought he was in China.
That's right.
And then what did he say? These must be the 10 tribes of Israel. Then who took, and y'all gonna say, see, Christopher Columbus, he knew man, stop giving these Europeans credit. Then, guess who else told you that? Guess who else said that these were the 10 tribes of Israel? Guess who took that and ran with it before the Israelites even came on the scene like we know it today? Guess who? The damn Mormons. You grab a Book of Mormon, they got Jesus came and taught the Aztecs because they were the 10 tribes, lost tribes of Israel. Yeah. The Mormons.
These guys.
You talking about John Smith, who got some golden tablets in the ground and nobody was around to see it. And he had to translate while nobody was around. And he gave the decree while nobody was around. And then taught you Mormonism. Guess what else they teach in Mormonism?
they took it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And now Israel think they found something special. Wow, look what I found out. Brother, you looked at a Book of Mormon. You looked at what Christopher Columbus told you and then said these Native Americans are us. Gad is not a specific tribe. Reuben is supposed to be the Seminoles. But Gad is just all these other tribes. You specified the Seminole, but then you just gathered all these other tribes and said, that's Reuben. So Apache, Aztec, Arawak,
Cherokee,
all of them, that's just Gad.
the Sioux.
Right. All of them, that's Gad.
Knock it off.
Crazy. Madness, absolutely. That 12 tribes chart, once again, is being debunked here. We are indeed the Israelites, but they are not. Now, I'm not saying they didn't suffer, but the Indians suffered too, like the actual Indians. The Chinese, the British went over there and had opium wars and oppressed the Chinese.
Yeah, for sure.
The Ottomans, we already covered it. They made us slaves, but then they went to Eastern Europe and got slaves from there. They went to Ethiopia and made slaves from there. Are they the tribes of Israel too because they were slaves? You know the term slave comes from Slav or Eastern Europeans? I got a new theory. The Bulgarians are the tribe of Benjamin.
Uh-oh.
I think we need to go to Bulgaria. I think I'm going to marry me a Bulgarian wife. Because that's Benjamin, Howlin' Wolf. Crazy. Just because you were a slave doesn't mean you are an Israelite.
That's right.
But were you, as we said already, en masse, taken on ships, and millions of you were transported to a land you've never seen before? We already showed that Christopher Columbus brought some, Native Americans to Spain. Half of them died on the ship. Only a few of them came, and then afterward, the Pope, the Catholic monarchs, or the kings, I should say, of Spain said, do not enslave them. Stop enslaving these indigenous people. From the monarchs themselves. Now, obviously, people didn't listen. They tried to enslave them, but it didn't really work. They had to import some quote-unquote Africans. Those are the children of Israel, not these Native Americans that are here. Now, if a Native American comes and, professes the covenant of APPAREL and gets consecrated, that's on point.
He's welcome.
Yeah, he's welcome as somebody of the nations, but not as the children of Israel. Let's read on. Maybe Candid can.
There were allowed 3 exceptions, which were freely abused by colonial Spanish authorities: slaves taken in just wars, those purchased from other indigenous people, or those from groups alleged to practice cannibalism.
Whoa. Look at that. If
Yeah.
you know, you know.
Yeah. So they made exceptions for enslaving them, but still the rule of law was that you could not enslave the indigenous people, except for these exceptions. If they practiced cannibalism, they would slave you. Let's read on.
The Spanish colonists, fearing the loss of their labor force, complained to the courts that they needed manpower.
So now look what they did. Yo, I can't enslave these indigenous people. I'm not going to have manpower for my sugar plantation. I'm not going to have manpower for whatever my gold mining. I need a solution. Read on.
As an alternative, Las Casas suggested the importation and use of African slaves.
Here's a solution. I got the solution from Balaam. Balaam told me, this weird convert guy, for some reason, he's still, in the back room. I saw him doing the head bob and stuff. But he says he's a Catholic, so I'm trusting that he's a Catholic. He told me not to enslave these indigenous. But instead, we should go to Africa and enslave them. And this Las Casas guy was a sympathetic person for the indigenous. He was over there in some of these Spanish colonies and was saying, I hate what's going on to these indigenous people. They look very similar to us. I don't like what's going on. What should we do? Go to Africa and brutalize them. Jump down to the next paragraph.
With the increased dependency on enslaved Africans, what the Spanish crown opposed to the enslavement of indigenous people, except in the case of rebellion, slavery became associated with race and racial hierarchy.
We see now where the racial hierarchy started coming into play. This is why they had some sympathetic nature to the Native Americans, because they looked at them and they said, wow, you have long hair like us. Long, straight hair. You're not completely dark. I mean, you're in the middle. You're not us. You're not lily white.
But you're not them either.
Yeah. You're not those big lip bastards over there in Africa with curly hair. Get them and take them over here. Let's read on.
With Europeans hardening the concepts of racial ideologies, these were buttressed by prior ideologies of differentiation as that of the Lapizia de Sangre,
What's that?
purity of blood.
The purity of blood. You must have pure Spanish European blood. Read on.
Which in Spain referred to individuals without the perceived taint of Jewish or Muslim ancestry.
You were tainted if you had ancestry from these Moors or who else?
In Spanish America, purity of blood came to mean a person free of any African ancestry.
Came to mean anybody free of African ancestry or somebody free of any sort of blackness. You get the same thing carried over today. They're talking about you got 1/8 black, you black, and we're not going to treat you like a white person. And so you now see that racial segregation they were saying is really about Africans. Telling you clearly it's not about these Native Americans. Now, once again, they did suffer. Just like all these other, the whole world is going to suffer under the beast.
Yeah.
You can't get around that. But not everybody who suffers is a child of Israel. The people at the bottom who were once the head and now the tail, those are the people. Some of these people are the legs. Some of them, help these countries walk, but we're the tail. We're the very back end. We're the ones treated like garbage and trash, like a lower class, like the lowest class. And that is who these curses of Deuteronomy 28 that we saw align with. These Native Americans were not taken on ships on a large scale and made slaves in a foreign land. It did not happen, but we saw millions. An estimated 5.5 million were brought to Brazil. And so we see of so-called Africans being us, being children of Israel who were scattered after the Roman destruction of Jerusalem, went into Africa and spent some time there. And so those were the ones being enslaved and brought over, not the Native Americans. The Native Americans were enslaved for a time. A lot of them got decimated. A lot of them were destroyed. A lot of them don't really exist like that. And you see the stupidity of saying that Mexicans are Issachar. That's like saying Americans are Judah. Americans? This is Chinese Americans. This is European Americans. This is Spanish Americans. Portuguese Americans. The Spaniards brutalized the Aztecs, the Mayans. Y'all know about, obviously, the Spaniards came over with armor and muskets and stuff, but another weapon they used was dogs. I don't know if y'all didn't know that. They used dogs over here. And they trained them dogs to be vicious, like extremely vicious, like to go and tear Native Americans apart.
Wow.
So they used those dogs. You can look that up. It was horrendous, they said. They brutalized them for sure. But when it was all said and done, almost all the Native Americans were gone. Almost all of them, especially the men. And so what did the Europeans do? As most nations that conquer another nation, they take the women.
Yeah.
Take the women. And they talk about how that was the genesis of the modern day Mexican. They destroyed Tenochtitlan, which is the capital of the Aztec Empire, and rebuilt modern Mexico City. Mexico City is built on the ruins of the Aztec Empire. And they killed most of the men, took the women, made it with them, and then, controlled the colony and brought slaves over. They still brought slaves over to Mexico. But the modern Mexican is a blend of Spanish conquistadors, men, and Aztec women. Now, it's crazy that Israelites say, that's Issachar, but then say, you're of your father. If your father's white, you white. Your father was Esau, you Esau. Okay, so who are these Mexicans?
Who are their fathers?
Yeah, whose fathers were Spaniards. Who are they?
Issachar.
Yeah. Right, only logical conclusions, they are Issachar.
Yeah, that's foolishness.
Foolishness.
That's pure foolishness.
So we're not taking away from the atrocities that were done to the indigenous people over here, but we're looking chiefly from a biblical perspective at Israel. The prophecies are not about them. They had their own prophecies. The Aztecs were saying, some bearded, white-faced people are going to come and destroy us. It happened. Yeah. But we're talking about us.
That don't make them Israel.
That don't make them Israel, not at all. You got that, once again, from Christopher Columbus and the Mormons. If you believe that Mexicans are Issachar, you got that from the Mormons. You know what else the Mormons teach? I meant to say that earlier. They teach that Ham is the father of all black people, and you cannot be a part of the Church of Latter-day Saints. They only recently changed that. But you're going to take that Mormon doctrine. This is Israel. They were right about something. How about throw the whole thing in the trash? The Book of Mormon is trash. Straight trash. Treat it like the Talmud.
Yeah.
If you know, you know. You go to one of the hotels and see the Book of Mormon, trash that joint.
Hey, they're essentially the same people.
Right. Is trash. And so we see that they didn't have the same faith. They got destroyed for sure, but the state said don't enslave them while at the same time enslave us. Let's read on wherever you're at, A. Buchanan Cam.
In 1501, Spanish colonists began importing enslaved Africans from the Iberian Peninsula to their Santo Domingo colony on the island of Hispaniola.
All right, so remember, there were a lot of slaves in Spain. They said, gather them ones up from Spain and bring them over here to Santo Domingo and Hispaniola so we can get some colonial reign going. Read on.
These first Africans, who had been enslaved in Europe before crossing the Atlantic, may have spoken Spanish and perhaps were even Christians.
Look at what we said from the beginning. When they were converting these juice boxes over to Catholicism, you think they were taking the black ones, the Moors, and converting them? No. They said some of these slaves were likely Christians. So they took them, converted them, and they were still slaves. So when they did that Reconquista and the Inquisition, they were not getting Moors, black people, and making them Christians. As we already saw, these are the white juice boxes. White grapes, not the red grapes. Let's read on.
About 17 of them started in copper mines, and about 100 were sent to extract gold. As old world diseases decimated Iberian indigenous populations in the first decades of the 1500s.
Look at that. Now, they did try to enslave some of these Caribbeans, but disease came and ravaged them. And so, how did the curses fit? The diseases that were written about in Deuteronomy weren't supposed to destroy your population.
Yeah, right.
It was supposed to make you feel like I need to turn back to Abba Yahweh. But these diseases destroyed them, where their populations dwindled to almost nothing. And so they brought Africans, so-called, over to the New World to work the mines. Let's read on.
Enslaved Africans, Bozellus, gradually replaced their labor.
Gradually replaced all the labor of these Native Americans. And how you bring them on the ship? They're already here. They're already in the land.
Right.
So why you bring? They don't fit. And there's nothing wrong with that. They are who they are. Accept who you are, and
That's
accept the covenant, and get consecrated and be a saint still. But Israel is given to these people to whom the curses fit. Let's read on.
But they also mingled and joined with indigenous groups in flights to freedom, creating mixed race, maroon communities in all islands where Europeans had established chattel slavery.
So once again, they did mix. They did come together and mix a lot of times. So you're going to have some of them close to the indigenous who mixed a lot. You see some, even Brazilians, you see a lot of them have a dark look, but not quite like us. Same thing with Dominicans, a dark look, but not quite, because they mixed with the Europeans, the Spanish, or the Portuguese, and the native, and the slaves. And so the Spirit has to bear witness as to who is who. But to say Mexicans are Issachar, to say Dominicans are Simeon, is such a scam. Let's read on.
In 1524, the Spanish began to import African slaves to what is now the country of Honduras.
Honduras ain't on the 12-tribe chart, but they brought slaves to Honduras. Read on.
About half of them coming from other colonies such as the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Cartagena, Colombia, as well as directly from Africa regions such as Senegambia and Central Africa.
So Senegal, Gambia, they were bringing slaves from over there and even going into Central Africa and from other colonies, bringing them in. So we see that Spain had a big part to play in oppressing us, colonizing a lot of the world of South and Central America. You can see it, obviously, most of those countries speak Spanish. Brazil speaks Portuguese. It's kind of clear to see.
Yeah.
And Spain actually colonized a lot of those places. Portugal ended up being the ones who proliferated and actually trading for and selling off slaves to the Spanish. And so we see how these horns end up having competition, and then it led to war, where they had to have a treaty that only lasts for a certain period of time, but they both played a pivotal role in oppressing the children of Israel. Now, as we start to close down this class, let's go backwards a little bit and look at this guy, Columbus. Let's go to this article from NPR. Now, this ain't Wikipedia. This is NPR, National Public Radio. Let's look at what they say. I'm not going to read the headline of this article. Let's just go into this section. What does it say? Columbus' origins come into question. So, remember, they said he was from Italy and came to Spain. They're saying, is that true? Let's read on.
Few things about Christopher.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Oh,
you got it.
Like it. Few things about Christopher Columbus can be stated as facts. Legend has it that at a party with noble Spaniards, he demonstrated the possibility of the impossible by making an egg stand on its tip. There is a trick, of course. He flattened the edge of the egg without breaking it.
They said Christopher Columbus was known as a magician, doing tricks. Yeah. And so they're saying not a lot of things can be proven as fact. You know, they're saying this happened. We don't know if this happened. We don't even know about his origin. What else? Read on.
But there are some details that have not been questioned by most people through the years, like the fact that Christopher Columbus came from Genoa in Italy.
All right, so they said people question him doing this trick of making an egg stand upright on its own. But nobody has really been questioning where he comes from. Is he from Genoa, Italy? Read on.
That he persuaded Spain's Catholic monarchs to sponsor an impossible voyage to the Indies, traveling west instead of east from Spain. Lorente, a forensic medical expert in the University of Granada.
So he persuaded the monarchs, and they're intimating, they're kind of alluding to the fact that it's possible that Columbus came and lied to the monarchs and said, I'm going east to where we already know there's wealth, but instead knowingly went west. So when they say he was lost and brought Indians, and he probably was just like, yeah, they're Indians because, I went east, Why is that? They're saying maybe, how did he persuade them and end up going the completely wrong way? Let's read on.
Lorente, a forensic medical expert at the University of Granada, has researched Columbus' origin for the past 22 years. In documentary, he considers a number of theories about the origin of Columbus by examining them against DNA evidence and historical records.
So this guy was obsessed and said, I need to find out where Columbus come from. Is he really Italian? Read on.
Finally, Lorente arrives at the garden of Francesc Albardanar, a Catalan architect who authored the book La Catalanitat de Colom.
Yeah, Spanish words.
According to Albardanar, Columbus was a Sephardic Jew, part of that Jewish diaspora associated with the Iberian
truth
Peninsula.
comes out. With his magic tricks.
According to him, yeah, doing his magic, Columbus, they're saying, was one of those converts. One of the converts during the Inquisition. And so he converted, said, I'm a Catholic, and then told them, let me go east.
And he wasn't a sincere Catholic either.
Yeah, right. Not sincere at all. And that's why dude was like, I found the 10 tribes.
Yeah.
I found where my people are going to come. That's really what he was saying. Let's read on.
Yeah, con.
Columbus would have followed Jewish traditions and customs, although in public sphere, he acted as Christian.
In public, just like we talked about earlier. In
Yeah,
public,
yeah,
was a Christian, but cryptically, behind closed doors, he was at a wall.
Yeah, well involved.
Yeah.
Gyrate.
With his tiny hat on, yeah.
Aha.
Just said, ha ha. Let's read on.
He was born into a family of silk weavers from the Spanish city of Valencia, where there was a long tradition within the Jewish community of silk weavers.
So he had money.
Yeah, and there was a long tradition of these people have this particular occupation. So you come from that family of people with that same occupation in that exact same city? That's too fishy.
Yeah.
Let's read on.
Llorente's conclusion is unequivocal. Christopher Columbus was of a Jewish descent.
Unequivocal.
Yeah.
Unequivocal. He said, I can't see any other possibility. Christopher Columbus was one of those converts during the Inquisition who now was saying, I'm a Catholic, but behind closed doors was a juice box sipping on that white grape juice. And they're not going to trust a black man to go across the Atlantic with an expedition of 3 ships and 95 men.
Absolutely not.
Not at all. They just got the land free from them. But a juice box who converted, supposedly, oh, okay, I can trust you.
He was one of those new Christians.
Yeah, a new Christian. Let's read on. Let's finish that up.
If the DNA evidence studied by Llorente suggests Columbus was a Jewish man, then it becomes highly improbable that he was from Genoa, according to Bernarder.
All right, so it's highly improbable that he was from Italy. More than likely, he was from Spain. A Spaniard. Like I said, why wouldn't he just sail for Italy? Italy has access to the Mediterranean Ocean. You can go through the Strait of Gibraltar and, go out to Atlantic. But he sailed for Spain. As a Catholic, but really a juice box. Now, obviously, there's people who argue against this.
Yeah. Of course
There's Jewish websites say, this is impossible. Okay. You just don't want to be associated with this slave trade.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. If he was a great man, they would, yeah, we have evidence that he might have been one of us. But because he was known as somebody who sparked the Spanish slave trade and colonization of the East, he's not us. He's the Europeans. Yeah, whatever.
Knock it off.
Right. I firmly believe that. How everybody knew, a lot of people knew how to get to India. How do you just happen to go to the West?
And according to history, they said he had a navigator with him.
Yeah.
This navigator must have been slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had to be.
My theory is what Llorente is saying. He was a convert, a new Christian, and said, the Spanish won't pay for me to go out west. The Portuguese already got that on lock.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Llorente, too.
Right. I'm going to be like my forefather Balaam and be deceptive, be deceitful, do some magic tricks. I'm going to India. There's spices out there. There's already wealth. We already know. Let me go get some more wealth. Spanish said, yes, go ahead. I'm going out east. I'm going out west.
Exactly.
I'm going to New. I already know there's land out here. And brought some Indians over and took them over there and enticed the Spanish monarchs to go and form colonies out there. And it did just that. He's supposed to be an agent of the beast. I need to find a way to oppress these children of Israel. And they did just that. Let's go ahead and start closing out this class. If I get, if you'll grab AP candidate Cam, Daniel 2:34, and if you grab Isaiah 19 and pick it up in the first verse, Kahan Gabarya.
Fine.
Daniel 2, verse 34.
Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces.
So this is the vision given to Nebuchadnezzar about the 3 kingdoms that still were, or the 4, the gold of Nebuchadnezzar, the silver, the Persians, the copper, the Greeks, and the iron, the Romans. And then the 10 toes, the same 10 that John saw, but they were horns. Let's jump down to verse 41.
And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay.
So they're going to be divided, just like the Portuguese, even on the same peninsula, divided from the Spanish. Yeah. And we'll start to see, like the Ottomans, being on the east side, divided. They weren't one with the Spain. They were Muslim.
Right.
But they still had the same mission: oppress the children of Israel and build an empire and be the seat of Rome and the beast. Let's read on.
And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Verse 44. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed.
So during the days of the reign of these kingdoms, we're going to start to see the kingdom of Abba Yahweh begin to appear. Read on.
And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever.
So this is the stone that he saw. He's going to actually read on. He's going to tell you that.
For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure.
So that mountain, out of that mountain is going to be carved a piece of stone, a big rock, a big boulder that was not made with hands, and be cast down upon these toes, upon these horns, and break them to pieces. So this reign that they've had for their hour with the beast, starting with the Ottomans, which still have power today, not the same as before, a new empire is here. So as the Ottomans start to wane, Portugal started to get power and influence. As Portugal started to wane, Spain started to grow. And you're going to see them all doing the same thing. Everybody came to the slave trade at a different point. The Ottomans came in the 1200s, the Portuguese in the 1440s, the Spanish in the 1490s. And it's going to continue on until the kingdom of Abba Yahweh is established. And then they're going to come and break this rule into pieces. You see, this same rule is ongoing. They talked about the Treaty of Tordesillas is the foundation of the UN. The foundation of how they conduct maritime law. Everything that they've set up, even though Portugal is basically like a small power today, even though it's a shell of what it used to be, even though Spain is the same thing, what the legacy that they left is still here.
Yeah.
And these powers are still receiving the benefits of what they set up. And it's going to be that way until this great stone comes and bulldozes over these abominable kingdoms that gave power to, or that were given power from the dragon. Let's close this out in Isaiah 19 in the first verse. Kahan Gabaria.
The burden of Egypt. Behold, Abba Yahweh rideth upon a swift cloud.
Now remember, Israel is brought into Egypt again on ships. Was Egypt actually Egypt? Or was it bondage? Was it those with the spirit of Egypt upon them? Absolutely. Let's read on.
And shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it.
He's talking about the same thing that was given to Daniel. Let's read on.
Second verse. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians.
Look at that. They are divided. I shall make these kingdoms fight each other. Read on.
And they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. They shall seek the idols and the chambers, and to them
they shall seek their idols and their charmers.
Oh, charmers.
And who else?
And to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards.
They're going to seek. Where's Balaam? I need Balaam to come. My idols, my oblations are failing me. What's going to happen?
In Egypt will I give over to the hand of a cruel Lord. A fierce king shall rule over them, saith the heavenly Father, the Lord of hosts. The waters shall fail from the seas, and the rivers shall be wasted and dried up.
I'm going to be cruel and fierce toward them and decimate them. Destroy all the riches that they thought they had and destroy them, said the Most High. Let's jump down to verse 17.
And the land of Judah shall be a terror unto Egypt.
Not just Abba Yahweh alone, but Judah shall rise up and be a battle axe of Abba Yahweh and be a terror unto them. Just like they were to Balaam. Balaam was afraid of Moses.
Yeah.
He had to skedaddle because Moses was ready to lay hands on him.
Moses was waiting up for him.
Absolutely, but we're not going to fight the same way.
Exactly.
We are fighting like they did in the book of Judges, fighting from heaven. They're fighting from heaven. We just don't know it. But Judah is going to have this power. Just like the dragon gave their power to accuse in the courts of Abba Yahweh, day and night. Abba Yahweh said, just like he said to Moses, Midian vex you with the wiles. Now you go vex Midian. And when that happens, it's going to be a terror to those with the spirit of Egypt upon them. Those of these three horns that we cover, the Ottomans, the Portuguese, and the Spanish, are going to be terrorized by these oblations. What do they say about Pope Francis? As the priesthood were giving up oblations and Pope Francis starts to pass away, apparently on his deathbed, he was seeing demons ready to arrest him. Yeah, apparently he was screaming and hollering because he was being taken to duty hell.
He said, get these demons away from me.
Because those oblations were going up. And he was being accused for all the things that they have done. Look at what the Catholic Church has done. They were the ones who gave edicts and said, you can enslave those those Africans. Because they're pagans. No. The indigenous, no. Leave them alone. Them Africans, you got to get them. Let's read on.
Let's see.
Let's read that 17th verse again.
And the land of Judah shall be a terror unto Egypt. Everyone that maketh mention thereof shall be afraid of him, because of the counsel of the Lord of hosts, which he has determined against them.
Jump down to verse 19. So when they mention true children of Israel and Judah, they're going to be like, yo, slow down. You don't need to call Judah on us. We're going to get right, all right? We're going to get right. Just do anything. Just don't call Judah on us. Don't sick Judah on us. Go to verse 19. What's going to happen after they've been destroyed and terrorized for all the works they have done?
Thank goodness. In that day shall there be an altar to the heavenly Father in the midst of the land of Egypt, and the pillar at the border thereof to the heavenly Father.
He's going to destroy these nations until, just like David, when he went and transgressed, the Most High had an angel with a sword, slain all thousands of them, and what was the result? Built me an altar. Give me a sacrifice and I'll stop. Telling the Egyptians, those with the spirit of Egypt, the same thing. When the Most High dries up your water and the children of Israel are giving up oblation and accusing you, this is what is going to happen. They're going to say, all right, let's stop. Let's build an altar. Let's build a pillar. Let's read on.
And it shall be a sign for a witness unto the heavenly Father of hosts.
Just like Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh, when they stayed on the other side of Jordan, they built an altar as an ed, a witness.
Yeah.
That I am not disconnected from the tribes of Israel. Egypt is going to do the same thing, not for them to sacrifice, but as a sign that they have made a covenant with Abba Yahweh.
Is that Idwath?
Absolutely. Let's read on. They're going to be a part of it as well.
It says, and it shall be a sign and a witness for the heavenly Father of hosts in the land of Egypt. They shall cry unto Abba Yahweh because of the oppressor, and he shall send them a Savior, a great one, and he shall deliver them.
They shall be saved and delivered, just like us, because, remember, they were also deceived. The Most High created the earth for these nations to serve him through his chosen people, through Adam, and eventually to Israel. And so these nations that have been doing the opposite and have instead been oppressing, they're going to get their judgment. But just like Israel went astray and received some horrible judgment, don't think about these nations just being evil and wicked, and that's why they brought us into slavery. No, remember, it was our fault first. We walked away from the covenant of Abba Yahweh.
Talk about it.
If we, just like during times of Balaam, were righteous,
ain't no way.
there would be no curse against us. But when we start bowing down to the idols and started laying with their women, now it became a curse unto us. So blame ourselves first. They're just a tool. Don't get mad at the belt for spanking you.
Yeah.
Look at your actions that you did. Look at that you snuck out and you stole your dad's car and then you got in a wreck. And then your dad came with the belt and spanked you. The belt is just a tool to punish you. Look at your actions that you did.
Yeah. That's pure maturity right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We did some heinous things. We ourselves crucified the Messiah. And so we want to now look at the nations like, Most High going to kill you. Most High going to destroy you. Most High.
Knock it off.
Yeah. The Most High is going to punish them like he punished us. But then there's going to be a healing that's done, and they shall serve Abba Yahweh through us. Let's finish that up.
22. The Heavenly Father shall smite Egypt, and he shall smite and heal it.
He shall smite these nations with the spirit of Egypt upon him. He's going to smite these 10 horns, and he's going to heal them up. Just like he did the same thing to us. Read
That's
on.
mercy right there.
Absolutely.
And they shall return even unto the Heavenly Father, and he shall shall be entreated of them, and he shall heal them.
So even though these nations went awry, we're going to talk more about prophecy, Abba willing, in this series as we start bringing it to a close. We're going to talk about who really deserves that harshest punishment. But these nations, those who have the spirit of Egypt on them, are going to be smitten. They're going to be punished. They're going to be destroyed. But then the Most High is going to heal them. They're going to be wounded, and Abba Yahweh is going to heal them, because for 1,000 years, the whole earth is going to be serving Abba Yahweh. And that's not just Israel.
Yeah.
It's Israel at the head, just like these nations were trying to be the head. Rome was trying to be the head of the entire earth. The Ottomans were trying to be a head over the entire earth. So were the Spanish and the Portuguese. But it's going to be Israel. Israel and Judah, the true tribes of Israel and Judah, are going to reign over the entire earth, and all these nations are going to come and serve. In due season, they're going to come up to tabernacles and keep the Feast of Tabernacles, giving their tithes and offerings. It's not going to be like Portuguese slavery. It's not going to be like Spanish slavery.
Right.
They're going to willingly do it. They're going to happily do it. When they enslaved us and when they enslaved those indigenous, it was you work till your bones are numb.
Yeah.
You work until you fall dead. It's going to be, no, you give us a 10th. Yes, Spain, give us a 10th of everything. You can keep all the rest of it. Give us a 10th.
Keep these commandments.
Yeah, and keep these commandments. That is merciful.
Yeah.
A 10th is doable. You keep 90%. You give us a 10th of all that you produce.
That's
Portugal,
righteous right there.
That's righteous. That's godly. They said, I'm taking all of you and bringing you over as slaves. We said, you give us a 10th. Portugal, you give us a 10th. Ottomans, you give us a 10th. And Abba Yahweh is pleased with that. And so this is what's going to culminate at the end of these 10 horns. But there's more to it as well. And so stay tuned in the rest of this series and this Feast of Weeks as we start talking about the rest of these horns, along with some of the other things of prophecy to come. And remember, you got to go on the city of Adam, because Abba willing, we're planning to stop or at least slow down prophecy being coming out on YouTube. So if you're not in the city of Adam, you may be missing out in the future. With that, we're going to end the class. Hopefully it was enlightening and informative to all the saints.
Absolutely.
All praises. We're going to open up the floor to Q&A like we always do. Anybody in the audience with any questions on anything we covered, now's the time to go ahead and put those questions forth. And also anybody on YouTube. And hopefully we got Zoom up. If we have some people who want to call in and talk on Zoom, you can talk to us live. All right, 3 hours and 40 minutes. That's kind of short.
Right. Yeah.
God.
Impactful and powerful.
All praises. Like I said, there's a lot of information that has to be cut out, trimmed. And so, definitely could have gone a lot longer, but, got to be mindful of everybody. All right.
Shalom, priesthood.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Great class.
All praises.
The question I want to ask is pertaining to like Christopher Columbus. I know you was talking about how he was a juice box,
God.
Cuthian, all that.
Yep.
When he came to America, I'm not sure if you said this, but did you say that he brought some of the Indians or the Native Americans back to Europe?
Back to Spain.
Yeah, back to Spain. So like, I heard about that. I heard that it was more sent from the Americas back to Spain or back to Europe than there were actually sent to the Americas. Is that true?
What are you talking about?
As far as like the slave trade is concerned, like as far as like Israel coming from like Africa to the Americas versus Native Americans that were captured and sent back to Europe.
Are you saying you heard there's more Native Americans brought to Europe than there were so-called Africans brought to the Americas?
Yes.
Oh, nah. Not
Lies,
even close.
I tell you, lies.
Not even close. Not even close. Like you said, we already saw it. Christopher Columbus on his first voyage back, he enslaved 1,500, it said, brought over 550, and about 40% of them died on the way back. And so when they came over here, they were decimating their populations. Like, we look at the Spanish going to Mexico City, current-day Mexico City, they decimated them. I mean, they were having wars, and the Aztecs were warring and fighting the Spanish. They weren't just willingly going. And so some got conquered, but a lot of their populations were decimated. So what they were probably thinking was that there's a lot of Africans, so-called, who came from Africa up to Europe. Maybe that's what they were thinking. But even then, I wouldn't say more of them. There were a lot that went to Europe. But it seems like a lot of them went to the Americas. A lot more, I'd say. So there was still a lot, as we covered as well, that they took some Africans and brought them up to Europe. But it really wasn't a lot. And then even then, you had Spanish monarchs saying, don't enslave them. Don't capture them. Don't make them slaves. So, nah, that just wouldn't really fit.
Okay, Khan.
But what they were doing, and maybe this is what they were talking about, is that they were taking a lot of the goods from the Americas and bringing them over. So that's how they got introduced to a lot of crops. They say tomatoes came from this world, this side of the world, this hemisphere. The Italians loving tomato sauce, they took that from the Americas and brought that over there and imported it. And if that was the case, you would see a lot of them in Europe today. You would see a lot of those natives still in Europe, just like you see a lot of black people in Europe. But you don't really see them like that. So,
Shalom, priest.
Shalom.
I actually had another question about Christopher Columbus.
Okay.
So apparently in his first voyage to the Americas, he brought a lot of Spanish Moors to help him navigate.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like wondering about the validity of the idea that the Moors had already discovered America before Columbus, which is why they knew how to get there. Yeah.
I don't think there's much to support that. Obviously, there were people who had been to the Americas before. They talk about, the Vikings, the Nordic people. They went to Greenland and places like that. But to say the Moors sailed across and found, the Americas, I think that might be a little far-fetched, and maybe you might have had some small expeditions, but I don't think it was anything on a major scale. Maybe it's something worth doing a little more research in, but I don't see much to really support that as of yet.
Hey, Khan.
And for myself, I only heard one of the Moors that they brought over on Christopher Columbus's ship was a guy named Alonzo Penzine, who was a Moor, dark skinned, who knew how to navigate. So like Yaradan was saying, I don't think it's any evidence to support that there was a whole bunch of them that came over here and colonized or lived.
Mm-hmm. And before you get to that, we were talking about before how all those continents were together.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Noah, they, started to break apart with the flood.
Mm-hmm.
But you had, some of those people already living there. And of course, they would have been black people. So you start seeing statues like the Olmecs and things like that.
Yeah.
But these weren't like Israelites that came over. These weren't, particularly Moors. I'd say there has been much that I've seen that point to these were Moors that came over.
And the problem with our people, they think anybody with dark skin is dead people.
Yeah.
Oh, the black man was here. That's us.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, there's a lot of black people in Africa too.
Yeah, sure is.
A lot of them are us, huh? Some are, but a lot are not.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful. Go ahead. We got another question.
Oh, great class.
All praise the Most High.
Solomon had a navy. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, he had to have a navy. He was transporting a lot of goods and getting a lot of goods from a lot of these not European, but these countries that he subjugated. Because Solomon had an empire. Right. Solomon inherited a lot of lands over there, and like you said, he went all the way to the river Hamath, or not River Hamath, but to Hamath, which is going all the way out toward India.
Okay.
So, is that what you were getting at? How they were in India?
Right, and this side of the world too. I'm just.
It's coming this side of the world. I don't really think so, because then that kind of destroys the prophecy about in Deuteronomy 28 about how they would go to a strange land with these people with a fierce countenance,
right?
Who with a language they've never heard before, and go over to a place that they've never seen before,
and their fathers have never known.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So I don't think Solomon was sailing out all the way to the Americas. It's a good story to want to believe in, but it doesn't really do anything to us. It just makes us feel a little bit more grand. But what Solomon had was grand. I mean, Solomon ruled. Yeah, it was the greatest. It was already grand in and of itself. He ruled over all of the mighty kingdoms at the time. So all the way out to Egypt, all the way out to what would become Persia. And so that was great in and of itself. So we don't need to add things. Like I said, I know it's not you, it's other people teaching on that.
Yeah.
We don't need to add that. We don't need to talk about these Native Americans. They were us. That actually dilutes our strength. This is actually the same thing they did, even going back to, in 1964 when they passed the Civil Rights Bill. We were fighting for that, and honestly, I have a theory. I wanted to do some research on it. I haven't done it yet, but the juice boxes were all involved in us being in the civil rights. Helping us, but I think they were supplanting it like Jacob. And so when you have the Civil Rights Bill come out in 1964 that we fought for, they just threw in all this other stuff. You can't discriminate on race, but also not sex, also not this orientation, also not economic status, also not. What did that have to do with what we were fighting for? And so that watered down everything that we fought for. Black people were getting oppressed beyond anybody else. And now you've included everybody else in our plight. And it's the same thing today. Now you have people talking about, we need to support black and brown. And something happened, I forgot. I think it was under Biden. And you had black people talking about, we stand in solidarity with the Asians. Now look how they repay the favor. They come and shoot you in the back.
Exactly.
Literally. And so when we lump all these people in, it waters down what we are really should be doing. It waters down our real heritage. Like I said, now we mix it in. Native Americans are talking about, brothers were talking about they was going to powwows and they teepees and doing all this weird stuff. Wearing tassels and stuff, like wearing feathered hats like a chieftain. It waters down the real and true culture when we start mixing all these people that don't need to be mixed in, saying that they are the people. Go ahead.
Looking at this series, Balaam and his sons, and also the spirit of Balaam, always against the children of Israel.
Khan, absolutely. Absolutely. And Abba willing, we're going to get more into that as this series progresses, Abba willing. So we're not going to touch on it too much, But we wanted to show how they were there with all these nations going back and forth and giving them some instruction. And we saw them there with the Portuguese. We saw them there with the Spanish. And they were undercover, too.
Yeah.
They weren't just
On
in plain
top of
sight.
that.
They were undercover.
And they still undercover.
Yep. Absolutely.
But they're being revealed now.
Oh, yeah. All praises.
Yeah.
There you go.
They want to make sure we stay down.
And it makes sense. Why are they scattered out in all these other countries? Because we are scattered out in all these other countries. God. All praise.
Could I add to that?
God.
I know when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt, who were the ones that was right behind us, targeting our young, our elderly, and our sick? It was Amalek.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they've been doing it for a while.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
NAACP, everything.
Oh, yeah. Everywhere we have gone, they have been coming, supplanting it, trying to get back at Jacob for supplanting Esau. Go ahead. What you got?
We have some super chats.
Okay.
I'm just going to read those out.
Okay.
Tawada Abba, Yah, for restoring our nation in the midst of this captivity. Let us all rejoice, for our redemption draweth nigh. This comes from Azariah bin Yahuda 5.
Okay. All praises. I'm glad the Most High is a star nation too. This is important information. Not the watered down stuff. It is the specifics that appertain to us.
We have a question coming from user Michael Jackson, no relation.
Okay.
It says, Shalom, do this have anything to do with the 2 Samuel verses chapter 7, 14 through 15? I'm not sure what exactly he's...
Somebody want to get it?
2 Samuel chapter 14.
Yeah, chapter 17.
Chapter 7, 14 through 15.
All right. Yeah, you can go ahead and read it.
He said
I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the stripes of the children of men. But my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before thee.
Now this is talking about David wanting to build a house, and he's talking about you're not gonna build it, your son is. I'm gonna be a father to him. So maybe in the sense that the Most High never forsook us entirely, like he did to Saul. You know, he always, even though he scared us, he has always called us back. He always promised that he would not utterly leave us, and that, as it was prophesied to David, that there would always be a son to sit on his throne. So I guess in that regard, the brother is correct that this is related in the aspect of the Most High's mercy for us. Even though he scared us and destroyed us, he's going to come back, get some retribution on these nations, and restore us back to that covenant and that kingdom of David. All right, anything else?
That's all for right now.
All right. Anybody in Zoom?
No, sir.
All right. All right. Well, with that being the case, yeah, right. With that being the case, we're going to go ahead and shut down the class. We appreciate everybody being patient with us. We started a little late, but it was a little shorter. A little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think I got to use up these extra 5 minutes. Get it to 4 hours. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and shut down the class. Hopefully this was informative, and hopefully you continue to tune in as we talk about the rest and the remainder of these 10 horns and their oppression and their end. May peace and thanksgiving offerings be multiplied amongst all the saints. Shalom.
Shalom.
Blessed are they that do his commandments. The tree of life is his right. Ooh. Blessed are they that do his commandments. The tree of life is his prize. Let your light shine bright before me. Let them see your good works. Glorify my Abba, which is in heaven. While I live on this earth, so I move like David. Covenant 7. Bought a blue on my shirt. Let me make my bread. It's unleavened. That's on y'all young, let's work. My spiritual body need protection, so I have to obey. A lot of things have been revealed to me. I'm keeping the faith. Hey, how you gonna talk about you want it when it's right in your face? Hey, into his course with peace, thanksgiving. No, beating the case. Yeah.
I'm on the way, ain't hold up on time for the wake and bake. Ain't talking dank, the only thing burning is Murray Frank. Gotta bake the cake, 10 minutes and I'm about to elevate and meditate, annihilate. A demon ain't that why I won't be late. And think I'm sleep, but really I'm giving meat offerings. Priest set off for peace, sacrifices were never supposed to cease. We don't offer geese, that's physical, but I'ma offer me. On the altar of Abba, yeah, I will eat from that immortal tree.
Blessed are they that do his commandments. The tree of life is his prize. Blessed are